The moment Rose Miller's fingers brushed against Christian Valenti's hand in that crowded ballroom, she knew three things. Her brother had sold her out, this man could destroy her with a single word, and walking away was no longer an option. One dance. That's all it was supposed to be, a transaction to clear a debt. But when the most dangerous man in New York pulled her close and whispered, "You're mine now," in front of everyone who mattered, Rose realized she'd just stepped into a world where the exit doors had vanished behind her. If you want to see how Rose survives the night that changes everything, stay until the end, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The invitation shouldn't have been in her mailbox. Rose Miller stood in the narrow hallway of her Bushwick apartment, staring at the cream-colored envelope like it might bite. Heavy cardstock, gold embossing. Her name written in actual calligraphy, not the printed kind that pretended to be elegant. This was the real thing, expensive, intentional, and absolutely not meant for someone like her. She flipped it over. No return address, just a wax seal pressed with an ornate V. "Don't open it," she told herself. She opened it. The Valenti Foundation Gala. The Plaza. Black tie. Saturday, 8 p.m. Rose's stomach dropped. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the break rooms at work, mentioned in passing by clients who suddenly went quiet when she entered the room. Valenti. The kind of name that made people check over their shoulders before saying it out loud. She should burn it, throw it away, pretend it never arrived. Instead, she pulled out her phone and called the one person who could explain why a Mafia family was sending her formal invitations. "Danny?" Her voice came out harder than she intended. "What did you do?" Her brother's silence told her everything. "Rose, what did you do?" "I can explain. You have 30 seconds before I hang up and change my number." She heard him exhale, that same shaky breath he'd used when he was 12 and had crashed their mom's car. When he was 16 and got caught selling fake IDs, when he was 23 and needed bail money, he swore he'd pay back. "I borrowed some money," Danny said, "from some guys." "What guys?" "Just guys who lend money." Rose closed her eyes. "How much?" 50,000? It was for a business opportunity. "How much do you still owe?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Danny." 75. Rose's hand tightened around the phone. "You borrowed 50 and now owe 75? In how many months?" 3. Jesus Christ. She pressed her forehead against the wall. "And let me guess, these guys are connected to the Valentis." "I didn't know that when I borrowed it. I swear, Rose, I thought they were just regular—" "There are no regular loan sharks, Danny. There are only stupid ones and connected ones, and you somehow found the worst possible version. They said if you go to this thing, if you just show up and smile for a few hours, they'll consider the debt paid." Rose's blood went cold. "Consider it paid?" "I have it in writing, sort of. The guy said, 'You got a loan shark's promise? That's what you're banking on?'" "Rose, please, I'm out of options. They're talking about breaking my legs. Or worse. You're good at this stuff. Reading people, handling high-pressure situations. That's literally your job. My job is corporate security consulting, not playing dress-up for the mob. One night, that's all they want. You show up, you're polite, you leave. That's it. And if I don't?" Danny's silence was answer enough. Rose slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, the invitation in her lap. She thought about her brother's last visit, how thin he'd looked, how he'd flinched when someone knocked on her door. The bruise on his ribs he'd tried to hide. "If I do this," she said slowly, "you get help. Real help. Rehab, therapy, whatever it takes. And you never borrow money from anyone except a legitimate bank again. Understood?" "I promise. I swear, Rose. I'm not done. You also tell me everything. Who these people are, what they want, why they think I'm worth a $75,000 debt." "I don't know why they want you there. The guy just said Christian Valenti specifically requested your presence." Rose's mouth went dry. She'd done her research the moment she saw the seal. Christian Valenti wasn't just connected. He was the connection. 34 years old, Harvard Business School graduate, and the apparent heir to an empire that stretched from legitimate real estate holdings to decidedly less legitimate operations that the FBI had been investigating for a decade without making a single charge stick. Why would Christian Valenti know I exist? I don't know, Maybe he saw your picture or something? My picture. When they were investigating me, making sure I was good for the money, they probably looked into my family, and you're pretty enough to be interesting. I wasn't going to say it like that. Rose laughed, but there was no humor in it. You just sold your sister to the mob to pay off your gambling debts. It's not like that. That's exactly what it's like. She stood up, her decision made. I'm going. But Danny, if this goes wrong, if I end up dead in the Hudson because you couldn't keep your shit together, I'm haunting you for the rest of your miserable life. Thank you, Rose. Thank you so much. I'll never... She hung up. The Plaza Hotel looked like something out of a movie Rose couldn't afford to see. She'd passed it 100 times on her way to client meetings in Midtown, but she'd never been inside. Now, standing in front of the gilded entrance in a dress she'd panic bought from a consignment shop in Soho, she felt like an actress who'd wandered onto the wrong set. The dress was black, because of course it was, with a neckline that was just low enough to be interesting without being obvious. She'd found it for $200, which was still more than she'd ever spent on clothing in her life. But apparently, you couldn't crash a Mafia gala in a pantsuit from Target. Invitation? The doorman wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Rose handed over the cardstock, fighting the urge to snatch it back and run. He scanned it with a device that looked like something from a sci-fi movie, then nodded. Welcome, Ms. Miller. The ballroom is on the second floor. No turning back now. The grand ballroom was everything the name promised. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars. Marble floors that reflected the light like still water. And people, hundreds of them, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine's idea of old money. Rose accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and tried to blend into the crowd. She'd done this before, sort of. Corporate events where she was paid to observe, to notice who talked to whom, to identify security risks before they became problems. This was the same thing, just with higher stakes and better jewelry. You're staring. Rose turned to find a woman in her 60s standing beside her. Elegant didn't begin to cover it. She wore a deep burgundy gown that probably cost more than Rose's car, and diamonds that definitely did. Her silver hair was pulled back in a style that managed to be both severe and stunning. Sorry, Rose said. It's my first time here. I can tell. The woman's smile was knowing but not unkind. You're looking at everyone like you're trying to memorize their faces. Occupational hazard. I work in security. How interesting. The woman's gaze sharpened. Corporate or personal? Corporate mostly. Risk assessment, threat analysis, that kind of thing. And what threats have you assessed so far this evening? Rose hesitated. This woman was testing her, but why? 3 exits, all with security that's trying too hard to look casual. The waitstaff moves in predictable patterns, which means someone's coordinating them. And there's at least 2 people in this room who are carrying concealed weapons under very expensive suits. The woman laughed, a genuine sound that made several nearby conversations pause. You have good eyes, my dear. I'm Lucia Valenti. Rose's champagne glass nearly slipped from her fingers. Christian Valenti's mother. The woman who, according to every article Rose had frantically read in the past 3 days, was the real power behind the Valenti empire. The one who'd taken over when her husband died and turned a struggling operation into something that rivaled the legitimate businesses it hid behind. Rose Miller, she managed. It's an honor to meet you. Is it? Lucia's expression was unreadable. Most people who receive their first invitation to our events are terrified. You seem merely cautious. I'm good at hiding fear. I respect that. Lucia took a sip from her own glass. Whiskey, Rose noticed, not champagne. My son will want to meet you. Your son? Christian. He's the reason you're here, after all. Rose's pulse kicked up. About that, I'm not sure why I was invited. My brother had some financial difficulties, but I don't see how attending a party... Your brother is an idiot who makes terrible decisions. Lucia's tone was matter-of-fact, not cruel. But his debt was forgiven 3 days ago. You're not here because of what he owes. You're here because my son asked for you specifically. The floor felt unsteady beneath Rose's feet. The debt is forgiven? Completely. He still can't borrow from our associates again. We have standards, but the money is gone. Whatever happens tonight, it's not about Daniel Miller's poor judgment. Rose's mind raced. If the debt was cleared, then why? He's watching you right now, Lucia said quietly. From across the room, He has been since you walked in. Rose followed the older woman's subtle nod and found him immediately. Christian Valenti stood near the far wall, surrounded by men in expensive suits who all seemed to lean slightly in his direction, like plants towards sunlight. He was tall. She'd known that from photos, but pictures didn't capture the way he held himself. Perfect posture that somehow didn't look stiff. A dark suit that fit like it had been made specifically for his body, because it probably had. And eyes that were locked on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. He said something to the men around him without breaking eye contact with Rose, and they scattered like he'd waved a magic wand. Then he started walking toward her. "Good luck, my dear," Lucia murmured. "Try not to bore him. He has such little patience for boring people." Rose wanted to ask what the hell that meant, but Lucia had already glided away, leaving her alone in the middle of the ballroom as Christian Valenti closed the distance between them. He moved like violence wrapped in expensive fabric. Not aggressive, exactly, but deliberate. Like every step was calculated. People moved out of his way without seeming to realize they were doing it, conversations pausing as he passed. Rose forced herself to stand still, to not fidget with her glass or smooth down her dress or do any of the nervous things her body wanted to do. She'd negotiated with corporate executives who thought they were untouchable. She'd stared down security threats without blinking. She could handle one man, no matter how dangerous he was supposed to be. Then he stopped in front of her and she realized she'd been lying to herself. Up close, Christian Valenti was devastating. Dark hair that was just slightly too long to be conventional. Sharp features that would have looked harsh if not for the mouth that suggested he knew how to smile when he wanted to. And those eyes, dark brown, almost black in the ballroom lighting, that looked at her like he was reading a book only he could see. "Rose Miller." His voice was low, controlled. "You came. I was invited. You were ordered." He tilted his head slightly. "By your brother's poor decisions and your own sense of obligation. There's a difference. Your mother said the debt was forgiven. 3 days ago." Rose's anger flared. "Then why am I here?" "Because I wanted to meet the woman who's been investigating me for the past 72 hours. Her blood went cold. "I wasn't... You Googled me 47 times, read 18 different articles, watched 3 news clips, and you tried, unsuccessfully, to access sealed court records from my father's trial." He said it without emotion, like he was reading from a grocery list. "Your digital footprint is impressively thorough for someone who supposedly works in corporate security." Rose's mind raced for an explanation, an excuse, anything that wouldn't make her sound like a stalker or an idiot. "I was doing my homework." "On me?" "On the situation I was walking into." "And what did you learn?" Rose met his gaze directly. "That you're dangerous, connected, and smart enough to stay out of prison despite a decade of FBI investigations. That your family's business is built on things that don't stand up to close examination, and that I should have burned the invitation the moment I received it." Something flickered across his expression, surprise, maybe, or approval. "But you didn't. My brother's an idiot, but he's my idiot. I protect the people I love, even when they don't deserve it. Loyalty." Christian said the word like he was tasting it. "That's rare." "Is it?" "In my world, extremely." He held out his hand. "Dance with me." It wasn't a question. Rose looked at his outstretched palm, then back at his face. "I'm not a very good dancer." "I don't care." "Your mother's watching." "I know." "So is everyone else in this room?" "Yes." Rose set down her champagne glass on a nearby table, her hand only shaking slightly. "If I step on your feet, it's your own fault." His smile was brief but genuine. "Noted." The moment his hand touched hers, everything else seemed to fade. He led her onto the dance floor with the same deliberate grace he'd used to cross the room, and suddenly they were moving, his hand at her waist, her palm against his. "You lied," he murmured, close enough that she felt his breath against her ear. "You're an excellent dancer." "I took lessons when I was 12. My mom thought it would make me more graceful." "Did it work?" "I can throw a punch without telegraphing. Does that count?" His laugh was quiet, meant only for her. "Where did you learn to fight?" "Brooklyn. You learn fast or you learn to run." "And which did you choose?" Rose looked up at him, surprised to find real curiosity in his expression. "Both. Depends on the situation." "Smart." His hand tightened slightly at her waist, not possessive, but present. "Your brother told you about the debt." He told me showing up here would clear it. He didn't mention it was already gone. Would you have come if you'd known? Rose considered lying, then decided against it. Probably not. That's why I didn't tell him to mention it. Christian spun her smoothly, and she caught a glimpse of Lucia watching them with an expression that might have been approval. I wanted you here because you're interesting, Rose Miller. Not because of your idiot brother or his debts. Because you. You don't know me. Not yet. But I've been watching you for 20 minutes and you haven't flinched once. Everyone else in this room is either terrified of me or trying to use me. You're just trying to figure out my angle. Everyone has an angle. What's yours? Rose met his gaze. Survival? Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. That's honest. I don't see the point in lying to someone who can probably tell when I'm doing it. I can, he confirmed. But most people try anyway. They think charm or fear will override the obvious. Does it? Sometimes. Not with you. The song shifted, something slower, and Christian pulled her closer. Not inappropriately. They weren't pressed together, weren't crossing any lines. But close enough that Rose could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that probably had a French name she couldn't pronounce. Why did you really invite me here? She asked. I told you, you're interesting. That's not enough. Men like you don't invite strangers to family events because they're interesting. His smile was sharp. Men like me? Powerful, dangerous, too smart to make moves without reasons. And you think this is a move, isn't it? Christian was quiet for a moment, still leading her through the dance with the kind of ease that came from years of practice. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more serious. My mother has been after me to find someone for 3 years. Someone suitable. Someone who understands what this life requires and won't crumble under pressure. Rose's heart kicked. And you think that's me? I think you walked into a room full of people who could destroy you with a phone call, and you're still standing here asking me direct questions instead of trying to charm your way to safety. That takes either stupidity or courage, and you're not stupid. This is insane, probably. I came here to clear my brother's debt, not to audition for... She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. For what? Christian's eyes were intense. Say it. This is. Neither do I. His honesty surprised her. But I want to find out. The song ended. They stopped moving, but Christian didn't let go of her hand. Around them, Rose could feel the weight of attention. Dozens of conversations that had paused, eyes that were locked on them, people trying to figure out what they were witnessing. Everyone's staring, she whispered. Let them. Your mother approves. She wouldn't have introduced herself otherwise. Rose tried to pull back, but his grip tightened, not painful, not restraining, but firm. I need to stay. It was a command, quiet but absolute. Please. That last word did something to her. This man who clearly wasn't used to asking permission, who moved through the world like he owned it, had just said please like it cost him something. For how long? Until midnight, like Cinderella, except I promise not to make you lose a shoe. And then what? Christian's smile was dangerous and gorgeous and entirely unfair. Then you go home and I call you tomorrow, and we have dinner somewhere that doesn't require you to wear a dress you bought specifically for this occasion. Rose's cheeks heated. How did you... The tag is still tucked into your collar, back left side. She reached back reflexively, felt the small piece of cardboard she'd forgotten to remove, and wanted to disappear into the floor. Oh God, it's charming. He reached around and gently tucked it deeper so it wouldn't show. You came here prepared to face something terrifying, and you did it anyway. That matters more than whether your dress is new. I can't tell if you're making fun of me. I'm not. His expression was serious now. I'm trying to tell you that I find your honesty refreshing. Everyone here is playing a part. You're just being yourself. Maybe I'm a better actress than you think. Maybe. He offered his arm. Let's find out. Walk with me? Rose looked at his outstretched arm, then at the room full of people who were definitely still watching, then back at his face. She thought about her brother, safe at home because this man had decided to forgive his debt. She thought about the careful control in Christian's voice when he said please. She thought about the fact that she'd Googled him 47 times and he'd noticed. She took his arm. They walked through the ballroom like that, her hand resting on his forearm, his other hand covering hers. People moved aside without being asked. Conversations stopped and started in their wake. Someone murmured something in Italian that Rose didn't catch, but Christian's jaw tightened briefly before relaxing again. "What did they say?" she asked. "Nothing important." "Liar." He glanced down at her, surprised. "You're very direct. You said you appreciated honesty." "I do. It's just rare to find someone who practices it." He paused near a set of French doors that led to a balcony. "They said you're beautiful." "They're right." Rose's breath caught. "That's a dangerous thing to say to someone you just met." "I'm a dangerous man. It fits." "Is that supposed to be charming? Is it working?" Rose laughed before she could stop herself. "I don't know yet. Ask me at midnight." They stepped onto the balcony, and the noise of the party faded behind them. New York spread out below, all lights and movement and noise that somehow sounded quieter from up here. The September air was cool but not cold, carrying the smell of rain that hadn't fallen yet. "Why security consulting?" Christian asked, leaning against the balcony railing. "Why run a criminal empire? Family business." "Same answer." He raised an eyebrow. "Your family is in security?" "My dad was NYPD. My mom was a prosecutor. They both died believing the system worked, that good guys win and bad guys lose, and everything in between is just details." Rose looked out at the city. "I learned pretty quick that the world doesn't actually work that way." "What changed your mind?" "My dad got shot during a routine traffic stop by a kid who was 14 and scared and had a gun he didn't know how to use. My mom died of a heart attack 6 months later because she couldn't handle the stress of living in a world where her husband died for no reason. And then I had a little brother to raise and no idea how to do it except keep him alive and try not to screw him up too badly." She turned to face Christian. "Obviously, I failed at the second part." "You kept him alive. That counts." "Does it? He's 25 and can't make a decision that doesn't blow up in his face." "He has a sister who will walk into a room full of predators to save him. That's more than most people have." Rose studied Christian's profile, the sharp line of his jaw, the way he held himself even in a casual lean. "You sound like you speak from experience." "My father taught me 3 things before he died: how to read people, how to control a room, and how to survive when everyone wants you dead." He looked at her. "The first 2 were useful, the last one was essential." "How old were you?" 16. "That's young to lose a parent. That's young to inherit an empire." He said it without self-pity, just fact. "My mother held things together until I was old enough to take over. Some people thought she should have kept control. She thought I needed to learn how to lead or die trying. Tough love. The only kind that matters in my world." He turned to face her fully, his back to the city. "You're not scared of me." It wasn't a question, but Rose answered anyway. "I am. I'm just good at hiding it." "Why hide it?" "Because showing fear to predators is how you get eaten." Christian laughed, a real sound this time, not the controlled chuckle from before. "You think I'm a predator. I think you're apex. There's a difference." "Explain." Rose chose her words carefully. "Predators hunt because they're hungry or bored or both. Apex hunters don't need to chase. They choose their targets and wait for the right moment. Everything else is just theater." "And which am I doing with you?" "I haven't decided yet." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "When you do decide, tell me. I'm curious what conclusion you'll reach." Rose's heart hammered against her ribs. This close, she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his pupils had dilated slightly, the tension in his shoulders that suggested he was holding himself back from something. "You're trying to intimidate me," she said. "Is it working?" "You're trying to see if I'll run." His smile was slow. "And?" "I don't run." Rose held his gaze. "I already told you that. So you fight, when necessary." "Is it necessary now?" Rose's breath came faster. They were standing too close, the air between them charged with something she couldn't name and didn't want to examine. Behind them, the party continued, music and laughter and conversation, but out here it felt like they were alone in the world. "I don't know," she admitted. "You tell me. Am I in danger?" Christian's expression shifted, something unguarded flickering across his features before he locked it down. "Not from me. Never from me." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give right now." He reached up and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear, his fingers barely brushing her skin. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would either try to seduce me or run away. You're doing neither. Would you prefer that I did? No. He dropped his hand. I prefer this. You're real. Everyone else in there is playing a role they think I want to see. You're just being yourself, and it's... He stopped, seeming to search for the right word. Refreshing? Rose supplied, echoing what he'd said earlier. Dangerous. She blinked. I'm dangerous? To me, yes. He said it like a confession, because I want to know more. I want to understand how you think, what you're afraid of, what makes you laugh. I want things I haven't wanted in years, and we've known each other for less than an hour. Rose's mouth went dry. That's insane. I know. You already said that. I was going to say intense. That too. He stepped back, giving her space. I'm sorry. I didn't bring you out here to corner you or make declarations. I just wanted to talk away from... He gestured vaguely toward the ballroom. All the witnesses? All the expectations. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed unconscious and entirely human. In there, I'm Christian Valenti, and that comes with assumptions about what I want and how I'll get it. Out here, I can just be... a person? Something like that. Rose felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't the calculated mob boss from the articles she'd read. This was someone younger, more uncertain, trying to figure out how to have a normal conversation with a woman he found interesting. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I like this version better. His smile was small, but genuine. Yeah? Yeah. The intimidating crime lord thing is impressive, but it's also exhausting to be around. This, she gestured between them. This feels more real. It is real. He leaned back against the railing beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Everything else is performance. This is just us. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city. Rose tried to process everything that had happened in the past hour. She'd walked in expecting to fulfill an obligation and leave. Instead, she was standing on a balcony with a man who was supposed to be terrifying, feeling more connected to him than she'd felt to anyone in months. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Anything. Why me? Really, not the interesting part or the courage thing. Why specifically me? Christian was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. 2 months ago, one of my business associates, a man I trusted, tried to have me killed. He hired professionals, planned it carefully, covered his tracks. It almost worked. Rose's blood went cold. What happened? I survived. He didn't. Christian's tone was flat, empty of emotion. But it made me realize something. Everyone around me wants something. Money, power, protection, connections. They smile and call me friend while plotting how to use me or replace me. And I'm tired, Rose. I'm so fucking tired of not being able to trust anyone. And you think you can trust me? I think you're the first person in years who doesn't want anything from me. He turned to look at her. You came here for your brother, not yourself. You're not trying to impress me or manipulate me. You're just being honest, even when it might not be smart. He paused. That's something I haven't experienced in a very long time. Rose's chest ached. I don't know what to say to that. You don't have to say anything. He pushed off the railing. We should probably go back inside before my mother sends someone to find us. She's protective. Of you? Of anything she considers hers. I'm at the top of that list. Rose followed him toward the French doors, then stopped. Christian? He turned back, eyebrows raised. For what it's worth, I think the people who want to use you are idiots. They're missing the person underneath all the power and reputation. She held his gaze. That person seems worth knowing. His expression did something complicated. Surprise and pleasure and wariness all at once. You barely know me. I know enough to want to know more. The words hung between them, honest and terrifying. Rose half expected him to laugh or make some cutting remark that would break the moment. Instead, he smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes and made him look years younger. Midnight, he said. Stay until midnight, and I promise I'll make it worth your while. That's not ominous at all. I'm told I have a flair for the dramatic. By who? My mother. Usually right before she tells me to stop being ridiculous and just say what I mean. Rose laughed. I think I like your mother. She likes you too. She wouldn't have bothered talking to you otherwise. She has very little patience for people who don't interest her. They walked back into the ballroom together, and Rose immediately felt the weight of attention shift back to them. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Eyes tracked their movement. Someone whispered something that made their companion laugh nervously. Does this ever get easier? Rose asked quietly. No, you just get better at ignoring it. Christian's hand found the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. The key is to act like you don't care what they think. Eventually, you'll believe it. Do you believe it? Most days. They made their way to where Lucia stood talking with an older man in a military uniform. She glanced at them, her expression unreadable, then excused herself from the conversation. Having fun? She asked Rose, though her eyes were on Christian. It's certainly memorable. That's diplomatic. Lucia's smile was knowing. Christian, the senator wants a word. Tell him I'm busy. Tell him yourself. He's approaching from your 6. Christian's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn around. Give me 5 minutes. You have 3. The Russos are arriving, and I won't have an incident because you're distracted. Lucia looked at Rose. You don't mind if I steal my son for a moment? It wasn't really a question, but Rose answered anyway. Of course not. Christian leaned close, his voice low. Don't go anywhere. And don't let anyone convince you to leave. I mean it, Rose. Stay right here. Why do I feel like that's an order disguised as a request? Because it is. He brushed his fingers against hers, brief, almost imperceptible, then turned to face whatever political conversation his mother had arranged. Rose found herself alone in the middle of the ballroom, holding a champagne glass she didn't remember picking up, surrounded by people who were definitely still watching her. This was going to be a long night. Rose had been standing alone for less than 30 seconds when a man materialized at her elbow. Mid-40s, expensive suit that didn't quite fit right, and a smile that reminded her of every sleazy corporate executive she'd ever had to deal with. You must be the mystery woman, he said, his breath carrying the sharp tang of whiskey. Christian's new, what? Girlfriend? Consultant? Entertainment? Rose kept her expression neutral. Rose Miller. And you are? Marcus Delacroix. I handle some business for the Valenti family. He said it like she should be impressed. Real estate acquisitions, mostly. The legitimate side of things. How nice for you, he laughed, moving closer than was appropriate. You've got fire. I like that. Most women Christian brings around are either terrified or too stupid to realize what they're walking into. You seem different. Maybe because I'm neither of those things. So, what are you? Marcus's eyes traveled down her dress and back up in a way that made her want to shower. A social climber? Gold digger? Or just someone who likes dangerous men? Rose met his gaze directly. I'm someone who doesn't appreciate being sized up like a stock option. If you'll excuse me. His hand caught her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. Hey, I'm just being friendly. No need to get defensive. Let go of my arm. Come on, don't be like that. I'm just trying to... Marcus. The voice came from behind Rose, cold enough to freeze water. Remove your hand before I remove it for you. Marcus's grip vanished instantly. Rose turned to find a woman standing there, late 20s, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a black dress that somehow managed to look like armor. Her expression suggested she'd seen Marcus's type before and had zero patience for it. Sophia. Marcus's smile was forced. I was just introducing myself to Christian's guest. By grabbing her? Interesting strategy. Sophia's attention shifted to Rose. Are you all right? Fine. Thank you. Good. Sophia looked back at Marcus with undisguised contempt. Christian's looking for you. Something about the Brooklyn property deal falling through. He seemed upset. The color drained from Marcus's face. That's not... I told him we needed another week. Then I'd suggest you find him quickly and explain that. He's by the north entrance. 3rd door on your left. Sophia's smile was sharp. Better hurry. You know how impatient he gets. Marcus practically ran toward the indicated door. Sophia watched him go, then turned back to Rose with an expression that was significantly warmer. Sophia Russo. I work with Christian on security matters. And before you ask, no, that wasn't a real emergency. Marcus is just a creep who needed to be elsewhere. Rose couldn't help but smile. Thank you. I was about 2 seconds away from breaking his fingers. I believe you. You have that look. Sophia gestured to a quieter corner of the ballroom. Come on, you look like you could use a minute away from the vultures. They settled near a window that overlooked the street below. Sophia produced 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter and handed one to Rose. So, Sophia said, you're the one everyone's talking about. Apparently. I didn't realize I was that interesting. You walked in on Christian's arm, danced with him in front of his mother, and then disappeared onto a private balcony for 20 minutes. In this world, that's basically a marriage announcement. Rose nearly choked on her champagne. That's insane. I just met him tonight. Doesn't matter. Christian doesn't dance. He doesn't take women to private balconies, and he certainly doesn't look at anyone the way he was looking at you. Sophia's expression was curious but not unkind. You must be something special. I'm really not. My brother owed money. I showed up to help clear a debt that was apparently already cleared, and now I'm standing in a ballroom trying to figure out what the hell is happening. Welcome to the Valenti world. Nothing makes sense until suddenly it does, and by then you're too deep to walk away. Sophia took a sip of her champagne. Word of advice: if you're serious about him, or even thinking about getting serious, you need to understand what you're walking into. Which is? Sophia was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Christian is brilliant, loyal, and probably the most dangerous man in this room. But he's also carrying the weight of an empire that his father built on blood and his mother refined into something more sustainable. Everyone wants a piece of him. Everyone has an agenda. And the women who get close to him either want his money, his power, or the bragging rights of sleeping with someone that dangerous. And you're telling me this why? Because you don't strike me as any of those things. You look genuinely confused when Marcus asked what you were to Christian. That kind of innocence doesn't last long in our world. Sophia met Rose's eyes. I'm giving you a chance to walk away before it's too late, before you care too much to leave. Well, Rose thought about Christian's face when he'd talked about not trusting anyone, the way he'd smiled at her like she'd given him something unexpected, the careful control that slipped just enough to show her the person underneath. What if it's already too late? She asked quietly. Sophia's expression softened. Then hold on tight. It's going to be one hell of a ride. Before Rose could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. 3 men in suits that screamed money and menace had entered the ballroom, flanked by security that looked more like an invading army than guests. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Shit, Sophia muttered. The Russos. They're early. Russos? Like your last name? Different branch of the family. Distant cousins who think they should have more control than they do. Sophia's jaw tightened. And that's Marco Russo. He and Christian have history. Rose followed Sophia's gaze to the man in the center, tall, dark-haired, with a smile that looked like it had been painted on. He surveyed the room like a general assessing a battlefield. Then his eyes landed on Rose. His smile widened. This is bad, Sophia said. Marco doesn't come to these events unless he's planning something. And the way he's looking at you... What about the way he's looking at me? Like he just found Christian's weakness. Rose's pulse kicked up. I'm not Christian's... Doesn't matter what you are or aren't. Perception is reality in this world. And right now, everyone in this room thinks you matter to Christian, which means you're either an asset or a liability, depending on who's asking. Marco Russo began moving through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, but his trajectory was clear. He was heading straight for them. Where's Christian? Rose asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. Still dealing with a senator, probably. Or his mother intercepted him. Sophia set down her glass. Listen to me very carefully. Marco is going to try to get under your skin. He'll say things designed to make you doubt Christian, doubt yourself, doubt this entire situation. Don't engage, don't argue. Just smile politely and give him nothing. And if he doesn't take the hint, then we pray Christian gets here before things get ugly. Marco reached them before Rose could formulate a response. Up close, he was handsome in a way that felt manufactured, too perfect, too polished, like he'd studied what people found attractive and replicated it without understanding why. Sophia, he said, his voice smooth as oil. Always a pleasure. And you must be the famous Rose Miller, Christian's new project. Rose forced a smile. I don't think we've met. Marco Russo. I'm an old friend of the family. He extended his hand and Rose had no choice but to shake it. His grip was firm, possessive, holding on just slightly too long. I have to say you're causing quite a stir tonight. That wasn't my intention. No? Then why accept an invitation to the most exclusive event of the season? Why dance with Christian in front of everyone who matters? Why disappear with him to a private balcony? Marco's smile never wavered. Those don't strike me as the actions of someone who wants to avoid attention. I came because I was invited. Everything else just happened. Nothing just happens in Christian's world. Surely you're smart enough to realize that. Marco leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. Let me guess. Your brother had some financial troubles. Christian offered to make them disappear in exchange for your company tonight. Classic move. He loves playing the hero. Rose's temper flared, but she remembered Sophia's warning. My brother's debts were cleared before I arrived. Christian told me himself. Did he? Marco's eyebrows rose. How generous. And what does he expect in return, I wonder? Nothing. Everyone wants something, sweetheart. The question is what price you're willing to pay when the bill comes due. He glanced at Sophia. Would you excuse us? I'd like to speak with Rose privately. No, Sophia said flatly. Marco's expression hardened for just a moment before the smile snapped back into place. It wasn't really a request. And my answer wasn't really negotiable. Sophia moved slightly, positioning herself between Rose and Marco. Rose is under Christian's protection, which means she's under mine. If you want to talk to her, you do it here, with me present. Christian's protection, Marco laughed. Marco, is that what we're calling it now? How long did it take him to make that claim? An hour? 2? That's enough. The voice came from behind them, and Rose felt relief flood through her at the sound. Christian stood there, his expression controlled but his eyes blazing. Behind him, 2 men in dark suits had materialized. Security, Rose realized, though they weren't making a show of it. Marco, Christian said calmly, you're early. The Russo family wasn't expected until 9. I like to be punctual. It's a virtue. Marco's smile was all teeth. I was just getting acquainted with your lovely companion. Rose, was it? Leave her alone. We were just talking. Nothing inappropriate, I assure you. Marco's eyes flicked between Christian and Rose. Though I have to admit, I'm curious. What makes this one so special? She's pretty, sure, but you've had prettier. She doesn't have the pedigree of your usual companions. So what is it? The challenge? The novelty of someone who doesn't know what you are? Rose opened her mouth to respond, but Christian spoke first. Sophia, take Rose upstairs. My mother's private suite. Wait there until I come get you. Christian, Rose started. Now. His tone left no room for argument. Sophia took Rose's arm, guiding her toward a service elevator that Rose hadn't even noticed. Rose looked back over her shoulder and saw Christian step closer to Marco, his body language screaming violence despite his calm expression. Wait, Rose protested as Sophia pulled her into the elevator. What's going to happen? Nothing you need to see. Sophia pressed the button for the top floor. Trust me, if Christian wanted you to witness whatever comes next, he wouldn't have sent you away. The elevator doors closed, cutting off Rose's view of the ballroom. She leaned against the mirrored wall, her heart racing. Is he going to hurt Marco? Probably not. Not here, anyway. Too many witnesses. Sophia's expression was grim. But Marco crossed a line. Christian doesn't tolerate threats to the people he cares about, and whether you realize it or not, you're in that category now. I don't understand any of this. I came here to help my brother, and now I'm being escorted to a private suite while 2 men who apparently hate each other have some kind of standoff over me? Welcome to being connected to Christian Valenti. It's complicated, dangerous, and completely impossible to walk away from once you're in. The elevator chimed and the doors opened to a hallway that was significantly more private than the public spaces below. Come on, Lucia's suite is this way. They walked down a corridor lined with artwork that probably cost more than Rose's apartment building. Sophia used a keycard to open a door at the end, revealing a space that was more apartment than hotel suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. And sitting in a leather chair by the window, a glass of whiskey in her hand, was Lucia Valenti. Sophia, she said without looking up, I assume my son sent you. Marco Russo arrived early. He and Rose were having a conversation that Christian didn't appreciate. Of course he didn't. Lucia finally looked at them, her gaze settling on Rose. You seem to have a talent for causing chaos, my dear. It's only been 2 hours, and you've already started a potential war. Rose's throat tightened. I didn't mean to. I didn't say it was a bad thing. Lucia gestured to the couch across from her. Sit, both of you. We need to talk. Sophia moved to stand by the door, security position, Rose realized, while Rose took a seat on the couch. This close, Lucia looked less like the elegant socialite from downstairs, and more like a general planning a campaign. My son, Lucia began, is brilliant but stubborn. He spent the last 5 years turning down every potential match I've suggested, claiming he doesn't have time for relationships or that he can't trust anyone. And then you walk in, and suddenly he's dancing, smiling, making claims in front of the entire New York elite. I didn't ask him to do any of that. I know, that's what makes you interesting. Lucia took a sip of her whiskey. Do you know why I talked to you earlier? Why I didn't simply ignore you like I do 90% of the people Christian brings around? Rose shook her head. Because when you walked into that ballroom, you looked terrified but determined, like someone going into battle, not a party. That takes courage. And when I tested you, asked you about the security, the threats, you answered honestly instead of trying to impress me. Lucia leaned forward. I've been looking for someone like you for my son. Someone who isn't blinded by power or seduced by danger. Someone real. With all due respect, Mrs. Valenti, you don't know me. I know enough. I know your father was NYPD, killed in the line of duty. I know your mother was a prosecutor who died 6 months later. I know you raised your brother while putting yourself through Columbia, graduating with honors despite working 2 jobs. I know you've built a reputation in corporate security as someone who can't be bought or intimidated. Lucia's smile was thin. I've known about you for 2 weeks, Rose, since the moment my son mentioned your name. Rose's blood went cold. He knew about me before tonight? He saw your photo when his people were investigating your brother's debt. He asked questions, then more questions. By the time he decided to invite you here, he had already done more research on you than he'd done on any potential business partner in the last year. Lucia set down her glass. My son doesn't do anything without a reason. The fact that he cleared your brother's debt 3 days ago but still insisted you come tonight tells me everything I need to know. Which is? That you matter to him. Already. And that terrifies him almost as much as it terrifies you. Rose thought about Christian's face on the balcony when he'd talked about not being able to trust anyone, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious and dangerous at the same time. I don't know what you expect me to say, Rose admitted. I met your son 2 hours ago. I don't understand what's happening or why everyone seems to think it's significant. Because it is significant. Lucia stood, walking to the window. The Valenti family has enemies. People who would love nothing more than to see us destroyed. Marco Russo is one of them, a cousin who thinks he deserves my late husband's position and resents that my son has it instead. And now Marco knows that you're important to Christian, which means you're a target. Rose's stomach dropped. I didn't ask for any of this. No one ever does. But you're here now, and you have a choice to make. Lucia turned to face her. You can walk away tonight. Go home. Forget this ever happened. Christian will make sure you and your brother are protected from any fallout. Or you stay. You see where this goes. You take the risk of getting close to someone who exists in a world most people can't even imagine. Lucia's expression was unreadable. But understand this. If you stay, if you choose my son, there's no halfway. You're either all in or you're out. This life doesn't allow for casual. Rose looked at Sophia, who gave her a small nod of confirmation, then back at Lucia, who was watching her with those sharp, calculating eyes that saw everything. I need to think, Rose said. Of course, take all the time you... The door burst open, and Christian strode in. His jacket was gone, his shirt slightly disheveled, and there was blood on his knuckles. Are you all right? He asked Rose immediately, crossing the room in 3 long strides. I'm fine. What happened? Marco got mouthy. I got physical. It's handled. Christian glanced at his mother. He's leaving. His entire crew is leaving. I made it clear they're not welcome at any family events for the foreseeable future. You hit him, Lucia said. It wasn't a question. I broke his nose. He'll survive. Christian's attention returned to Rose. I'm sorry. I didn't bring you here to deal with family politics or threats. This was supposed to be... He stopped, frustrated. It doesn't matter what it was supposed to be. I should have known better. Rose stood up, closing the distance between them. Up close, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the barely controlled anger in his eyes. Without thinking, she reached for his hand, examining his bloodied knuckles. You should clean this, she said quietly. It's fine. It's not fine. You could get an infection. She looked up at him. Where's the bathroom? Christian blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Through there. He gestured to a door on the left. Rose took his hand and led him toward the bathroom. Behind them, she heard Lucia say something to Sofia in Italian that made Sofia laugh quietly. Rose ignored it, focusing on getting Christian's hand under the tap. The bathroom was marble and gold and completely ridiculous in its opulence. Rose found a first aid kit under the sink. Of course there was a first aid kit, and wet a washcloth with warm water. You don't have to do this, Christian said, watching her work. I know. Rose dabbed at his knuckles, cleaning away the blood. But I'm doing it anyway. Why? Because you just punched someone for threatening me, and the least I can do is make sure you don't get tetanus from it. She looked up at him. That was stupid, by the way. Hitting him. Probably. Definitely. Now he knows he got to you. Christian's jaw tightened. He called you my weakness. Said you were just another pretty distraction that I'd discard when I got bored. I wasn't going to let that stand. So you hit him. I broke his nose. There's a difference. His expression softened slightly. I don't let people disrespect the things that matter to me. Rose's hand stilled. Is that what I am? A thing that matters? You know you are. He turned his hand over, catching hers. I told you on the balcony, you're real. Everything else in my life is strategy and calculation and wondering who's going to betray me next. But you... He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. You looked at me tonight like I was just a person, not a weapon, not a commodity, not a stepping stone. Just someone you were trying to understand. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Rose's throat tightened. Your mother told me I have a choice. Walk away tonight or commit to seeing where this goes. She's right, you do. And if I choose to walk away? Christian's expression went carefully neutral. Then I make sure you and your brother are protected, and I let you go. No strings, no obligations, no threats. You go back to your life, and I go back to mine. That's simple? That's simple. He paused. But I really hope you don't. Rose finished cleaning his hand and applied antibiotic ointment, then wrapped it with gauze. The whole time she felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. This man, this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly vulnerable man, was offering her a choice, and she had no idea what the right answer was. I should go home, she said finally, not because I'm choosing to walk away, but because I need to think without you standing in front of me looking like that. Like what? Like you care whether I stay or go. It's distracting. His smile was brief but genuine. Fair enough, but it's only 10:30. You promised me until midnight. That was before you started a fight in a ballroom. I ended a fight. There's a difference. He caught her hand again, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. Stay, please, just until midnight. Then I'll have my driver take you home, and you can think all you want. But don't leave like this. Not when things are messy. Rose looked down at their joined hands. His were larger, scarred, still slightly bloody, despite her attempts to clean them. Hers were shaking. Why does this feel like it matters so much? She asked quietly. We just met. This shouldn't feel important yet. But it does. Yeah. She met his eyes. It does. They stood like that for a long moment, the bathroom silent except for the distant sounds of the party below. Then Rose pulled her hand free and stepped back. Until midnight, she agreed. But after that, I'm going home. And you're going to give me space to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Deal. They walked back into the main room to find Lucia and Sofia in quiet conversation. Both women looked up as they entered, their expressions carefully neutral. Everything sorted? Lucia asked. For now, Christian replied. Rose has agreed to stay until midnight. After that, she goes home to think. Sensible. Lucia's gaze shifted to Rose. Before you go back downstairs, you should know that Marco's departure caused quite a scene. People are talking, speculating. By tomorrow morning, half of New York will have a theory about what happened and why. Let them talk, Christian said flatly. I will. But Rose should be prepared for the attention. This won't be the last time people ask questions or make assumptions. Lucia walked over to Rose, stopping directly in front of her. You handled yourself well tonight, better than I expected. If you decide to stay, if you choose this path, you'll have my support and my protection. Rose swallowed hard. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen how complicated this life can get. Lucia glanced at her son. Take her back downstairs. Let everyone see she's still here, still with you. Make the statement clear. Is that necessary? Rose asked. It is if you want people to think twice before approaching you the way Marco did, Sophia said from her position by the door. Christian just declared open season on anyone who threatens you. Following through by showing you're under his protection sends a message. Rose looked at Christian. Is that true? Yes. You could have asked me first. Would you have said no? She thought about it. Probably not, but I would have liked the option. Noted. He offered his arm. Ready to face the masses again? Not even a little bit. Let's go. They made their way back to the elevator, leaving Lucia and Sophia behind. The ride down was quiet, the tension between them palpable but not uncomfortable. When the doors opened back into the ballroom, Rose immediately felt the shift in atmosphere. Everyone was staring. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A few people actually backed away as Christian led her back into the room. This is worse than before, Rose muttered. They're afraid, Christian said quietly. Not of you. Of what it means that I'm willing to fight for you. That's insane. That's my world. He guided her toward the bar. What do you want to drink? Something strong enough to make the next hour tolerable. He smiled. Whiskey it is. They settled at the end of the bar, far enough from the main crowd to have some semblance of privacy, but visible enough to satisfy Lucia's instruction. The bartender, a young man who looked terrified of Christian, poured them both generous glasses of whiskey without being asked. Does everyone react to you like that? Rose asked, nodding toward the bartender's retreating back. Like what? Like you might kill them if they pour the wrong drink. Christian shrugged. Reputation precedes me. Can't really blame them. Have you? Killed someone? He looked at her directly. Yes. Rose's breath caught. She'd suspected, of course. You didn't run an organization like his without getting blood on your hands, but hearing him confirm it so casually was different. Do you want details? He asked. Or would you prefer not to know? I don't know. She took a sip of whiskey, letting it burn down her throat. Part of me wants to understand. The other part thinks ignorance might be safer. Safer for who? For both of us, probably. Christian was quiet for a moment, studying his glass. When he spoke, his voice was low enough that only she could hear. I've killed 3 people. 2 were in self-defense. They tried to kill me first, and I was faster. The third was the man who ordered my father's murder. I tracked him down 2 years after my father died, and I put a bullet in his head while he was eating dinner. Rose's hands tightened around her glass. Why are you telling me this? Because if you're going to decide whether to stay or go, you should know what you're dealing with. I'm not a good man, Rose. I'm a pragmatic one. I do what's necessary to protect my family and maintain order. Sometimes that means violence. Sometimes that means worse. He met her eyes. If that's a deal breaker, tell me now. Rose thought about her father, killed in the line of duty. Her mother, destroyed by a system that promised justice but delivered nothing. Her brother, who made stupid choices because he didn't have anyone to guide him properly. The world isn't black and white, she said finally. I learned that a long time ago. People like to pretend there are clear lines between good and bad, but mostly there's just gray, and choices, and consequences. She looked at him. I'm not going to judge you for surviving in a world that tried to kill you. That would be hypocritical. Most people would judge me anyway. I'm not most people. His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features. No, you're really not. They sat in silence for a while, sipping their whiskey and watching the party continue around them. People still stared, but the attention felt less aggressive now, more curious than threatening. Midnight, Christian said eventually, checking his watch. That's your deadline. I know. Have you decided? Rose looked at him, really looked at him. The controlled exterior that hid someone who was tired of being alone. The careful way he held himself, like he was always expecting an attack. The tiny scar above his eyebrow that she wanted to ask about but hadn't yet. I haven't decided anything, she admitted, but I know I want to see you again, away from all this. Somewhere normal. Define normal. I don't know. Coffee? A walk? Something that doesn't involve ballrooms or threats, or your mother orchestrating things from behind the scenes. Christian smiled. I can do that. Tomorrow? Tomorrow's Sunday. I usually spend it with my brother, making sure he's eating, hasn't gotten himself into more trouble, that kind of thing. Bring him. Rose blinked. What? Bring your brother. I'll take you both to lunch. Nothing fancy, nothing dangerous, just food and conversation. He paused. I'd like to meet the person you're willing to walk into danger for. It says a lot about both of you. Danny's going to freak out. Probably. But he should see that I'm not going to hurt you. Might make him feel better about the whole situation. Rose laughed despite herself. You're really committed to this normal thing, aren't you? I'm committed to whatever makes you comfortable enough to give this a real chance. His expression turned serious. I meant what I said earlier. I want to know you, Rose, not just tonight, not just as some fleeting thing. I want to understand how you think, what you care about, what makes you laugh. And I can't do that if you run. I'm not running. Then what are you doing? She thought about it. Being careful. Making sure I'm not making a terrible decision because you're good-looking and said nice things. Fair. He finished his whiskey. For what it's worth, I think you're being smart. I'd be suspicious if you weren't questioning this. Really? Really. Anyone who jumps into this kind of situation without thinking it through is either desperate or an idiot. You're neither. He stood, offering his hand. Come on, my driver's waiting outside. I'll walk you down. They made their way through the ballroom one last time. Lucia caught Rose's eye from across the room and gave her a small nod. Approval, maybe, or just acknowledgement. Sophia was nowhere to be seen, probably handling whatever cleanup was necessary after Marco's departure. The elevator ride down to the lobby was quiet. Christian kept hold of her hand, his thumb tracing absent patterns on her skin. When they reached the main entrance, a black car was already waiting, engine running. Tomorrow, Christian said. Noon. I'll pick you and your brother up. Text me your address. You're assuming I'm going to give you my number. He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. Her contact information was already entered. Rose's eyebrows rose. How? I'm thorough, and Sophia put it in while you were looking at my hand. His smile was sheepish. Sorry, that's probably creepy. It's definitely creepy. But Rose found herself smiling anyway. Text me when you get home, so I know you didn't start any more fights. I'll behave, probably. That's not reassuring. The best I can offer. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, brief, chaste, but loaded with promise. Get home safe, Rose. She got into the car and he closed the door behind her. Through the window, she watched him stand there until the driver pulled away from the curb. Even in the rearview mirror, she could see him watching until they turned the corner and he disappeared from view. Rose leaned back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. Unknown number. Already miss you. That's probably not normal for someone I just met, is it? She saved the number under Christian and typed back. Rose. Probably not. But nothing about tonight was normal. Christian. True. See you tomorrow. Sleep well. Rose. You too. Try not to punch anyone else before then. Christian. No promises. Rose smiled at her phone like an idiot the entire ride home. The next morning, Rose woke up to 17 missed calls from Danny and a string of increasingly panicked text messages. Danny. Where are you? Danny. Rose, please tell me you're okay. Danny. I heard something happened at the party. Danny. Rose. Answer your phone. Danny. If you're dead, I'm going to kill you. She called him back before he could work himself into a full breakdown. Jesus Christ, Rose. His voice was raw with relief and anger. I thought you were dead in a ditch somewhere. But I'm fine. I was sleeping. It's 7 in the morning, Danny. Normal people sleep at 7 in the morning. Normal people don't go to Mafia parties and then disappear for 12 hours. She heard him take a shaky breath. What happened? I got a call from some guy saying there was an incident with the Russos and that you were involved and who called you? I don't know. Some guy with an Italian accent who said he worked for Valenti and that I shouldn't worry, but also that I should check on you immediately, which is a very mixed message, by the way. Rose sat up, rubbing her eyes. It's complicated. Can you come over? I need to talk to you about something. I'm already on my way. Been sitting outside your building for 20 minutes waiting for you to wake up. Danny, just let me up, please. I need to see that you're actually okay. She buzzed him in and spent the next few minutes making coffee and trying to figure out how to explain the previous night. By the time Danny knocked on her door, she'd settled on honesty. Mostly. Her brother looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same clothes from yesterday, hair sticking up like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. He pulled her into a hug the moment he walked in. I'm sorry, he said into her shoulder. I'm so fucking sorry, Rose. I never should have asked you to go. I didn't think. You never think. That's the problem. But she hugged him back anyway. Come on, sit down. We need to talk. They settled on her couch with coffee. Danny looked at her like she might disappear if he blinked. The debt was cleared 3 days ago, Rose said, before I even got the invitation. Danny's face went white. What? Christian Valenti forgave the entire amount. You don't owe anything. Then why did you? Because I didn't know that until I got there. And by then, things got complicated. Rose took a sip of coffee, organizing her thoughts. He invited me because he wanted to meet me. Not because of your debt. Because of me. I don't understand. Neither do I, really, but we're having lunch today, noon, and you're coming with us. Danny nearly spilled his coffee. I'm what? You heard me. Christian wants to meet you, and before you freak out, it's not a threat. It's just lunch. Something normal. There's nothing normal about having lunch with Christian Valenti. Danny set down his cup before he actually dropped it. Rose, do you understand who this guy is? What he does? I have some idea, yes. And you're just, what, dating him now? I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to figure it out, and that starts with lunch. Rose met her brother's panicked gaze. Danny, he could have made your life hell. He could have hurt you, threatened you, made you disappear. Instead, he cleared your debt and asked me to a party. And when some asshole threatened me last night, he broke the guy's nose. He broke someone's nose? Marco Russo. Apparently there's bad blood between their families. Rose ran a hand through her hair. Look, I know this is insane, but for the first time in months, I feel like I'm not just surviving. I'm actually interested in something, someone, and I need to see where it goes. Danny was quiet for a long moment. You like him? I barely know him. That's not what I asked, Rose sighed. Yeah, I like him, which is probably stupid, but there it is. And he likes you back. Apparently enough to fight for me in front of half of New York's elite. So yes, I think he likes me back. Danny leaned back against the couch, processing. This is so far beyond anything I can even comprehend. My sister is dating a mob boss. I'm not dating anyone yet. We're having lunch. With his mother's approval based on what that guy said on the phone, he specifically mentioned that Mrs. Valenti wanted to make sure you were protected. Danny looked at her. Rose, these people don't do casual. If he's introducing you to people, making public claims, having his guys check on you through me, that's serious. I know. And you're okay with that? Rose thought about Christian's face when he talked about not trusting anyone. The careful way he'd held her hand. The vulnerability underneath all that control. I'm terrified, she admitted, but I'm also curious. And maybe a little tired of always playing it safe. Playing it safe is how you've kept us alive this long. And look where that got us. You're in debt to loan sharks. I'm working myself to death, and neither of us has had a real relationship in years because we're too busy surviving. Rose leaned forward. Maybe it's time to try something different. Danny rubbed his face. Okay, fine. I'll come to lunch. But if he threatens me or pulls out a gun or does any mob boss shit, I'm leaving. Deal. Rose checked her phone. We have 4 hours. You should go home, shower, change. Wear something nice, but not too nice. And Danny? Yeah? Thank you. For caring enough to sit outside my building at 7 in the morning. His smile was tired but genuine. You're my sister. Of course I care. After Danny left, Rose spent the next 2 hours trying on everything in her closet and hating all of it. Too formal, too casual, too trying hard, too not trying enough. She finally settled on jeans, a soft gray sweater, and boots that were comfortable but still looked intentional. Her phone buzzed at 11:30. Christian. On my way. Is your brother going to try to punch me? Rose. Only if you deserve it. Christian. Fair enough. See you soon. She met them outside her building at noon exactly. Christian pulled up in a car that was expensive but not ostentatious, black, sleek, but not the kind that screamed money. Danny stood beside her, practically vibrating with nervous energy. Breathe, Rose told him. He's just a person. He's really not. Christian got out of the car, and Rose felt that same jolt she'd felt the night before. He looked different in daylight, less dangerous, more approachable. Jeans, a dark sweater, no evidence of the perfectly tailored suits from last night. His hand was still bandaged from where he'd hit Marco. Rose. He smiled at her, then turned to Danny. You must be Daniel. Danny nodded, clearly not trusting his voice. I'm Christian. Thank you for coming. He extended his hand. Danny shook it, probably harder than necessary. You cleared my debt. I did. Why? Because your sister was more interesting than your money. Christian's tone was matter-of-fact. And because holding debts over people is exhausting, I have better things to do with my time. Like breaking Marco Russo's nose? Christian's smile was brief. I see Rose caught you up on last night's festivities. Yes, like that. He was disrespectful. I corrected him. By hitting him. By teaching him that some lines shouldn't be crossed. Christian looked at Rose. Ready? I promised you normal, and I intend to deliver. They drove to a diner in Queens that looked like it had been there since the 70s. Red vinyl booths, laminate tables, a jukebox in the corner that probably didn't work. Christian led them to a booth in the back, and Rose noticed that two men in casual clothes had taken seats near the entrance. Security, Christian said when he caught her looking. Sorry, non-negotiable. Even at a diner in Queens? Especially at a diner in Queens. Marco's family owns 3 businesses on this street. They know we're here. Rose glanced at Danny, who looked like he might bolt. Is that safe? Safer than you'd think. We have an understanding. No violence in public spaces. No collateral damage. As long as we're just having lunch, we're fine. Christian picked up a menu. The pancakes here are excellent, by the way. They ordered pancakes for Rose, a burger for Danny, and something called the heart attack special for Christian that made the waitress raise her eyebrows. While they waited for food, an awkward silence settled over the table. So, Danny said finally, you run a criminal organization. Danny! Rose kicked him under the table. What? We're all thinking it. Might as well say it. Christian laughed. I appreciate the directness. Yes, technically, though I prefer to think of it as managing a complex business with some unconventional aspects. Unconventional like murder? Danny, it's fine. Christian met Danny's gaze directly. Yes, like murder. Also extortion, money laundering, and various other activities that wouldn't hold up to legal scrutiny. I'm not going to lie to you about what I do or who I am, but I'm also not going to apologize for surviving in a world that was built before I was born. That's a convenient excuse. It's reality. My father ran this organization. When he died, I inherited it. I could have walked away, let it collapse, watched everyone who depended on us scatter to worse situations, or I could take control and try to make it into something less destructive. Christian leaned back in the booth. I chose the latter. That doesn't make me a good person, but it doesn't make me a monster either. Danny was quiet for a moment. And my sister? Where does she fit into all this? That's up to her. Christian looked at Rose. I'm not trying to own her or control her or pull her into something she doesn't want. I just want to know her. See if this thing between us is real or just a product of an unusual night. And if it's real? Rose asked. Then what? Then we figure it out together. One day at a time. The food arrived, interrupting the conversation. They ate in relative silence, the tension gradually easing. Danny seemed to relax slightly when it became clear that Christian wasn't going to threaten him or make any dramatic declarations. By the time they were halfway through the meal, he'd even started asking normal questions. So you went to Harvard? Danny asked around a bite of burger. Business school, my mother insisted. Christian poured more syrup on his pancakes. She thought legitimate education would help me run the less legitimate parts of the business more efficiently. Did it work? Surprisingly, yes. Turns out organizational management principles apply whether you're running a corporation or a crime family. Rose found herself smiling despite the surreal nature of the conversation. This was bizarre. Sitting in a diner, eating pancakes, discussing criminal enterprise management like it was a normal Sunday brunch topic. Can I ask you something? She said to Christian. Anything. Last night, your mother said people would start talking, making assumptions. What exactly does that mean? Christian set down his fork. It means that by the end of today, everyone in our world will know that you're under my protection, that you matter to me. Some people will see that as an opportunity, a way to get close to me through you. Others will see it as a weakness, something they can exploit or threaten. That's comforting. I won't lie to you about the risks, but I also won't let anything happen to you. His expression was serious. You and your brother both. You're protected now. That's not negotiable. What if I don't want protection? Rose challenged. What if I just want to be left alone? Then I'll respect that, But the protection stands regardless. You can't unknow me now, Rose. People have seen us together. That changes things whether we want it to or not. Danny had gone quiet again, his burger forgotten. This is insane, he muttered. My sister meets a guy at a party, and suddenly we're under mob protection like it's a thing that just happens. It is a thing that just happens, Christian said calmly. In my world, anyway. I know it's not ideal, but it's better than the alternative. Which is? Leaving you both vulnerable to anyone who wants to get to me. Which, trust me, is a longer list than you'd like. Rose felt the weight of that settle over her. This wasn't just about her and Christian anymore. It was about Danny, about her life, about every choice she made from this point forward. The normal she'd asked for suddenly felt very far away. I need some air, she said abruptly, sliding out of the booth. Christian started to follow, but she held up a hand. Just give me a minute, please. She walked outside, the cool air hitting her face like a slap. One of Christian's security guys tensed, but she ignored him, pacing the sidewalk and trying to process everything. The door opened behind her and she expected Christian. Instead, it was Danny. You okay? He asked. I don't know. This is a lot. Yeah, it is, Danny leaned against the diner's wall. But I see the way he looks at you. Like you're the only person in the room. Like you matter more than anything else. That doesn't make this smart. No, but it makes it real. Danny looked at her. You've spent your whole life taking care of me, making sure I don't screw up too badly, cleaning up my messes, sacrificing everything for us to survive. Maybe it's time someone took care of you for a change. I don't need taking care of. Everyone needs taking care of sometimes. Even you. He pushed off the wall. Look, I'm not saying this isn't complicated or dangerous or completely insane, but I am saying that you deserve to be happy. And if that guy in there makes you happy, then maybe it's worth the risk. Rose felt tears sting her eyes. When did you get so wise? I've been watching you my whole life, had to learn something. He pulled her into a hug. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. Always. They stood like that for a moment before heading back inside. Christian was still in the booth, his expression carefully neutral, but Rose saw the tension in his shoulders. Sorry, she said, sliding back in beside him. I just needed a minute. I understand. This is overwhelming. He paused. If you want to call this off, walk away. Pretend last night never happened. I'll understand that too. Rose looked at him, really looked at him. The careful control, the watchful eyes, the bandaged hand from defending her. The way he'd shown up in jeans and taken them to a diner instead of somewhere designed to impress. The genuine respect in his voice when he talked to Danny, instead of dismissing him as the screw-up who'd caused this entire situation. I don't want to walk away, she heard herself say, but I need to understand what I'm walking into. Really understand it. What do you want to know? Everything. How this works. What you actually do. What being with you would mean for my life. She took a breath. I need complete honesty, Christian. No sanitizing it to make it more palatable. He was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. Okay, but not here. Too many ears. He looked at Danny. You should hear this too. It affects you whether Rose and I continue this or not. They paid the bill and drove to a different location. A building in Brooklyn that looked abandoned but clearly wasn't. Christian used a key card to get them inside, and Rose noticed multiple security cameras tracking their movement. This is one of our offices, Christian explained as they took an elevator up. Legitimate business on the lower floors, less legitimate on the upper ones, completely secure. They emerged into a space that was part office, part apartment. Comfortable furniture, windows overlooking the city, and walls that Rose suspected were soundproofed. Christian gestured for them to sit, then poured 3 glasses of water from a pitcher on the table. He settled across from them, his posture formal now, all business. Here's how it works, he began. The Valenti family operates in several areas. Real estate, both legitimate property management and protection for businesses that don't want police involvement. Import-export, some legal, some not. Financial services, lending, investment, and money movement that bypasses traditional banking. And security, personal protection, conflict resolution, enforcement. Enforcement, Rose repeated, meaning violence. Meaning consequences for people who break agreements or threaten our operations. Sometimes that's financial, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's worse. Danny shifted uncomfortably. And you're in charge of all of that. I oversee it. My mother handles strategy and political relationships. We have lieutenants who manage specific territories and operations. Below them, soldiers who do the actual work. It's a hierarchy, like any organization. Except this organization kills people, Rose said quietly. Yes. Not often, not casually, but yes, when necessary. Christian's voice was steady. I won't pretend otherwise. The world I operate in doesn't allow for mercy when someone threatens what we've built. Rose felt her stomach turn, but she forced herself to keep listening. If you're with me, Christian continued, looking directly at her, people will assume you have access to information, influence, resources. Some will try to befriend you to get close to me. Others will see you as a target, leverage to use against me or a way to weaken my position. You'll be watched, followed, probably threatened at some point. That's supposed to convince me this is a good idea? I'm not trying to convince you of anything. You asked for honesty. His expression softened slightly. But I'll also protect you with everything I have. You won't be alone in this. You'll have security, resources, my family's backing, and if anyone tries to hurt you, they'll answer to me personally. Like Marco did. Marco got off easy. He said disrespectful things. If he'd actually touched you, tried to hurt you, he wouldn't have walked out of that ballroom. The matter-of-fact way Christian said it made Rose's blood run cold. Danny spoke up. What about me? You said this affects me too. Anyone who knows you're Rose's brother will assume you can be used as leverage. They'll watch you, maybe approach you with offers or threats. That's why the protection extends to you. Christian's gaze was direct. I know you didn't ask for this, but it's reality now. So I'm just supposed to accept that I need mob protection for the rest of my life? Only as long as your sister and I are involved. If she walks away, the threat level decreases significantly. Christian looked at Rose. That's another factor you need to consider. Dating me puts Danny at risk too. Rose's chest tightened. She'd been so focused on her own decision that she hadn't fully processed what it meant for her brother. Danny had already been through enough because of his own mistakes. Now he was facing consequences for her choices too. This is too much, she said, standing up. I need to think. Take all the time you need. Christian didn't move. But Rose, know that whatever you decide, I meant what I said. You and Danny are protected regardless. That doesn't change whether you choose me or not. Why? The question came out rawer than she intended. Why do you care this much about someone you just met? Christian stood, closing the distance between them. Because when I talked to you last night, I felt like a person instead of a weapon, for the first time in years. Because you looked at me like I was worth understanding instead of using or destroying. Because for one evening, I wasn't Christian Valenti, heir to a crime family. I was just someone talking to someone else who made him laugh. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture achingly gentle. I know it's fast, he continued. I know it doesn't make rational sense, but I also know that I woke up this morning thinking about you. Wondering if you slept okay, if you were having second thoughts, if I'd ever get to see you smile at me again. And I haven't felt that way about anyone in so long that I'd forgotten it was possible. Rose's throat was tight. Christian, I'm not asking for a decision right now. I'm just asking you not to disappear. His hand dropped. Take your time. Think it through. Talk to Danny, talk to anyone you need to. Just don't cut me out completely. She looked at Danny, who gave her a small nod, then back at Christian, who was watching her with an expression that was equal parts hope and resignation. I need a week, she said finally. No contact, no text, no showing up at my apartment. Just space to think without you standing in front of me making it impossible to be objective. Pain flickered across Christian's face, but he nodded. A week. I can do that. And after the week, I'll call you. Either to continue this or to end it. But I need that time. Understood. He pulled out a card and handed it to her. That's my personal number, not the one I gave you last night. That goes to my assistant. This one only I answer. When you're ready, call me. Rose took the card, their fingers brushing. Thank you for being honest, for not trying to manipulate me into deciding right now. I want you to choose me because you want to, not because I pressured you into it. He looked at Danny. Take care of her, and if you need anything at all, call that number. I meant what I said about protection. Danny nodded, still looking uncomfortable but slightly less hostile than before. Christian walked them back to the elevator. As the doors started to close, he caught Rose's eye one last time. I hope you choose me, he said quietly, but I'll understand if you don't. The doors closed, cutting off her view of him. The ride home was silent. Danny didn't push her to talk, which Rose appreciated. When they reached her building, he walked her up to her apartment and hesitated at the door. "You're going to choose him," Danny said. It wasn't a question. "I don't know yet." "Yes, you do. You're just scared." He smiled sadly. "It's okay to be scared and still do it anyway. You taught me that." "When did I teach you that?" "Every time you went to work after Mom died. Every time you dealt with my shit instead of giving up on me. Every time you chose to keep fighting instead of letting the world break us." He hugged her. "Whatever you decide, I love you. And I'll be okay. Don't let worry about me stop you from living your life." After he left, Rose sat on her couch and stared at the card Christian had given her. Heavy stock, simple design. Just a phone number embossed in black. She thought about his face when he'd talked about not being able to trust anyone, the way he'd smiled at her like she was something precious, the careful way he'd explained the risks without trying to minimize them. She thought about Danny's words, about deserving to be happy, about someone finally taking care of her instead of the other way around. She thought about the weight of a week stretching ahead of her, knowing that at the end of it, she'd have to make a choice that would change everything. Her phone buzzed. Against her better judgment, she checked it. It wasn't from Christian. It was from an unknown number. Unknown. "This is Sophia. I know he said no contact, but I thought you should know. Marco's been making noise about you. Nothing concrete yet, but watch your back. If anything feels off, call Christian immediately." Rose's hands started shaking. This was real. The danger, the threats, the consequences of being connected to Christian Valenti. It wasn't theoretical anymore. She should be terrified, should be looking for a way out. Instead, she found herself thinking about the way Christian had looked when he told her to take all the time she needed. Like it hurt him to give her space, but he'd do it anyway because she'd asked. Her phone buzzed again. "Sophia. Also, for what it's worth, I've never seen him like this with anyone. You got under his skin. That's not easy to do." Rose typed back before she could stop herself. "Rose, is he okay?" Sophia. "He's miserable, but he'll survive. He's good at surviving. The question is whether you're brave enough to do more than just survive." Rose set down her phone and looked at the card again. 1 week. 7 days to decide if she was willing to step into a world she didn't understand, with a man who terrified and fascinated her in equal measure. She already knew what her answer would be. She just wasn't ready to admit it yet. The week didn't go the way Rose expected. She'd planned to use the time productively, work on client projects, catch up on sleep, maybe reorganize her apartment. Instead, she spent most of it jumping at shadows and checking her phone every 5 minutes, even though Christian had respected her request for space. On Tuesday, a black SUV followed her to a client meeting in Midtown. She noticed it immediately, 3 cars back, changing lanes when she did, never quite catching up but never falling behind either. Her heart hammered as she ducked into the office building, but when she looked out the window 10 minutes later, the SUV was gone. Security or threat? She couldn't tell. Wednesday brought flowers to her office. 24 white roses with no card, just a small note that said, "Stay safe." Rose had stared at them for 20 minutes, trying to decide if they were from Christian or someone else entirely. She'd thrown them away, then immediately regretted it. Thursday, Danny called her 3 times in a panic because someone had been asking about him at his usual bar. Questions about his sister, his job, his schedule. The bartender had refused to answer and called Danny immediately after the guy left. "This is what you meant, isn't it?" Danny had asked, his voice tight. "About being watched." "Yeah," Rose had admitted. "That's what I meant." By Friday, Rose was exhausted. She hadn't slept properly in days, constantly aware of every car that passed her building, every stranger who looked at her twice. The protection Christian had promised felt more like surveillance, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being hunted. She was leaving work late when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello? Rose Miller?" The voice was male, unfamiliar, with an accent she couldn't place. "Who is this?" "A friend. I wanted to talk to you about Christian Valenti." Rose's blood went cold. "I'm not interested." "You should be. He's not who you think he is." The voice was smooth, practiced. "Meet me tomorrow. Bryant Park, noon. Just a conversation. No pressure." "I said I'm not interested." "Your brother frequents a bar on Amsterdam Avenue, lives in a 4th-floor walk-up with a broken lock on the front door, works at a gym that closes at 10, walks home alone through some pretty dark streets." The voice paused. It would be terrible if something happened to him because you refused a simple conversation. Rose's hand tightened on the phone. If you touch my brother, I won't touch anyone. I just want to talk. Bryant Park, noon tomorrow. Come alone or Danny finds out what happens when people ignore warnings. The line went dead. Rose stood on the sidewalk shaking. This was it, the threat Sophia had warned her about, the consequence of being connected to Christian, even tangentially. She should call him. She should tell him what just happened and let him handle it. But something stopped her. Maybe pride. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe the need to prove she could handle this herself. She called Danny instead. Whatever you're doing tomorrow, cancel it, she said when he answered. Stay home. Lock your doors. Don't answer for anyone except me. Rose, what's wrong? Just do what I'm telling you. Please, I'll explain later. You're scaring me. Good. Be scared. Stay inside. She hung up before he could argue. Then she stared at Christian's card, the one with his personal number. Her thumb hovered over her phone's keypad. One call, and this would be his problem. One call, and he'd handle it with the same efficiency he'd used on Marco Russo. She didn't make the call. Instead, she went home, locked every deadbolt, and spent the night planning. If someone wanted a conversation, she'd give them one, but on her terms, with her precautions. Saturday morning dawned gray and cold. Rose dressed carefully, jeans, boots with good traction, a jacket with pockets where she'd stashed pepper spray, and her phone set to speed dial 911. She left early, arriving at Bryant Park 45 minutes before the meeting. The park was busy with weekend crowds, tourists taking photos, locals walking dogs, vendors selling coffee and pastries. Rose found a bench with clear sightlines and waited, watching for anyone who looked like they were watching her. At exactly noon, a man sat down beside her. Mid-40s, expensive coat, wedding ring that looked too tight. He smiled at her like they were old friends. Rose, thank you for coming. You threatened my brother. I didn't have much choice. That wasn't a threat, just information. He pulled out a phone and showed her a photo. Danny, leaving his building that morning. See, he's fine, and he'll stay fine as long as we have this conversation like civilized people. Rose forced herself to stay calm. What do you want? To offer you an opportunity. You're a smart woman, Cornell degree, excellent reputation in corporate security, no criminal record. You don't belong in Christian Valenti's world. That's not your decision to make. No, but I can help you see why walking away is the smart choice. He swiped to another photo. This one showed Christian, younger, standing over a body. That's from 8 years ago. The man at his feet had tried to skim money from one of the family's operations. Christian personally handled it. Rose's stomach turned, but she kept her expression neutral. I know what he is. Do you? Do you know about the 3 women who got close to him over the last 5 years? One disappeared after she tried to leave him. One ended up in witness protection after testifying against a rival family. The third died in a car accident that was ruled suspicious but never investigated properly. You're lying. Am I? He showed her another photo, a newspaper clipping about a car crash. Sophia Russo didn't mention any of this, did she? She didn't tell you about Christian's history with women who think they can handle his world. Rose's mind raced. Sophia had warned her about danger, but she'd made it sound external. Threats from enemies, not from Christian himself. What if she'd been wrong? What if the real danger was the man she was falling for? What do you want from me? She asked again. Information. Christian trusts you, or he's starting to. That means you'll have access to things that could be very valuable to the right people. The man leaned closer. Help us. And we'll make sure you and your brother are taken care of. Protected. Financially secure. All you have to do is keep your eyes open and report what you see. You want me to spy on him. We want you to be smart. To choose survival over romance. To protect your brother instead of chasing after a dangerous fantasy. He handed her a business card. Think about it. You have 3 days to decide. After that, we'll assume you've chosen loyalty to Valenti over your own safety, and that would be unfortunate for everyone involved. He stood up and walked away, disappearing into the crowd before Rose could respond. She sat there for another 10 minutes, the card burning a hole in her pocket. Everything the man had said could be lies, probably was lies. But what if it wasn't? What if there was truth buried in those threats? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with an attachment. Unknown. Since you didn't call Christian about your little meeting, here's some additional motivation. The accident that killed woman number 3? Brake lines were cut. Police report is attached. Think carefully about who you're protecting. Rose opened the attachment with shaking hands. It was an official police report, heavily redacted but with enough visible to see brake line failure and suspicious circumstances and investigation ongoing. She wanted to throw up. Instead, she called the one person who might give her straight answers. Sophia answered on the second ring. Rose, everything okay? I need to meet you, now, and you need to tell me the truth about something. There was a pause. Where are you? Bryant Park. Stay there. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Sophia showed up in 8, wearing jeans and a leather jacket, her expression already stormy. She sat down next to Rose and didn't waste time on pleasantries. What happened? Rose told her everything, the phone call, the meeting, the photos, the accusations. Sophia's face went darker with each detail. Marco, she spat when Rose finished. That sounds exactly like his playbook. Threaten the family, show carefully curated evidence, make Christian look like a monster. So it's not true? The women, the accidents, it's partially true, which is what makes it effective. Sophia pulled out her own phone. There were 3 women. The first one, Angela, did disappear, but not because Christian did anything to her. She stole $2 million from a rival family and ran. Christian helped her disappear because she'd have been killed otherwise. She's living in Costa Rica under a new name, perfectly safe. And the second? Marina. She was working with the FBI, trying to get evidence against Christian. When he found out, he could have killed her. Instead, he gave her information about a rival organization in exchange for her leaving him alone. She went into witness protection, but not because she was afraid of Christian, because she'd pissed off the people he gave her intel on. Rose's hands were shaking. The third woman, the car accident. Sophia's expression went grim. Elena, that one's complicated. She and Christian dated for 6 months. It was serious as he gets with anyone. Then Marco found out about her. He had her killed to hurt Christian, made it look like an accident to avoid direct retaliation. The police never connected it to the families because Marco's people are good at covering their tracks. So Christian loved her, and he couldn't save her. Sophia's voice was rough. That's why he's been so careful since then. Why he doesn't let people close. Why he was willing to give you a week of space even though it's killing him. Because he knows what happens when someone he cares about becomes a target. Rose felt tears sting her eyes. They used her death to threaten me. Of course they did. Marco's playing the long game. He can't touch you directly without starting a war, but he can manipulate you into walking away. And once you're gone, Christian's back to being isolated. Vulnerable. Easier to take down. They gave me 3 days to decide if I want to spy for them. Sophia's laugh was bitter. They're not giving you a choice. If you agree, you're a spy. If you refuse, you're a loose end. Either way, you're dead within a month. The casual way Sophia said it made Rose's blood run cold. What? Marco doesn't leave witnesses. You know too much now about their operation, their tactics, their interest in Christian. Whether you help them or not, you're a liability. Sophia met Rose's eyes. You need to call Christian. Right now. He said no contact for a week. Fuck the week. You're in danger, real danger, and he needs to know. Rose pulled out her phone with shaking hands, but before she could dial, it rang. The same unknown number from yesterday. Don't answer that, Sophia said sharply. Rose answered it anyway. Rose, the man's smooth voice said, I see you're talking to Sophia Russo. That's disappointing. I'd hoped you were smarter than that. Rose looked around the park, suddenly aware that they were being watched. Where are you? Close enough to see you. Close enough to see your brother leaving his building right now despite your warnings. You should really answer when he calls. He's quite upset. Rose's other line beeped, Danny's number. Her heart stopped. Let me talk to him. I'm not with him, yet, but I could be. All depends on what you do in the next 60 seconds. The man's voice hardened. Lose Sophia. Go to the northwest corner of the park. Alone. You have 1 minute. The line went dead. Rose was already moving before Sophia could stop her. She sprinted across the park, dodging tourists and strollers, her phone pressed to her ear as she tried calling Danny back. No answer. No answer. No answer. She reached the northwest corner, gasping for breath. A black car was waiting, engine running. The back door opened. Get in, someone said from inside. Rose hesitated for exactly 2 seconds before Sophia appeared beside her, gun drawn. "She's not getting in that car," Sophia said calmly. "Tell Marco that if he wants a war, he can have one. But this stops now." The person inside the car laughed. "You think we're afraid of one woman with a gun? Look around, Sophia. Count the exits." Rose did look around. She counted 5 men in dark suits at various points around them, all positioned to cut off escape routes, all probably armed. "Christian will burn everything Marco has built if you touch her," Sophia said, her voice steady despite being outnumbered. "Christian isn't here, and by the time he finds out what happened, it'll be too late to matter." Rose made a decision. Before Sophia could stop her, she got into the car. "Rose, no." "They have Danny," Rose said through the open door. "I'm not letting him die because of me." The door slammed shut, and the car took off before Sophia could respond. Rose found herself sitting next to a man she didn't recognize, younger than the one from the park, with cold eyes and a smile that made her skin crawl. "Smart choice," he said. "Now, let's talk about your future, or lack thereof, depending on how cooperative you are." They drove for 15 minutes, ending up in a warehouse in Red Hook. Rose's mind raced through escape scenarios, but with 5 armed men surrounding her, the options were limited. They led her inside to a makeshift office where Marco Russo sat behind a desk, looking far too pleased with himself. "Rose Miller," he said warmly, as if they were meeting for lunch instead of a kidnapping. "I've been looking forward to this conversation." "Where's my brother?" "Safe. For now. He's at his apartment, completely unaware that his sister just walked into a trap to save him." Marco gestured to a chair. "Sit. We have much to discuss." Rose remained standing. "You lied about having him." "I motivated you to make the right choice. There's a difference." Marco leaned back in his chair. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Christian. You're going to tell him that you've decided to walk away, that his world is too dangerous, that you can't handle the pressure. You're going to break his heart very convincingly. And if I don't, then I'll make good on the threat I didn't actually execute yet. Your brother will have an unfortunate accident. You'll have a worse one. And Christian will spend the rest of his very short life wondering if he could have prevented it." Rose's mind worked furiously. She was trapped, literally and figuratively. If she refused, Danny died. If she complied, Christian would be devastated, and she'd have accomplished nothing except delaying the inevitable. Marco would still kill her once she was no longer useful. "Why do you hate him so much?" she asked, stalling for time. "Hate? I don't hate Christian. I hate what he represents." Marco stood, walking around the desk. "My family built this organization. We were in New York before the Valentis even existed. And then Christian's grandfather married into the right family, made the right alliances, pushed us to the margins. Now the Valentis run everything while we take scraps. So this is about jealousy. This is about justice, about taking back what's rightfully ours." Marco's smile was sharp. "And you're the key. Christian is already attached to you. He broke my nose over a few words. Imagine what he'll do when you destroy him emotionally, when you make him question his judgment, his instincts, his ability to read people. He'll be vulnerable. And when he's vulnerable, I'll strike." "You're insane." "I'm strategic. There's a difference." He held out a phone. "Make the call." Rose took the phone, her hand surprisingly steady. She had one chance to get this right. One chance to signal Christian without Marco realizing what she was doing. She dialed the personal number Christian had given her. He answered on the first ring. "Rose." Just hearing his voice made her chest ache. "Hi, I'm sorry to call before the week is up, but I needed to..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I needed to tell you something important." "What's wrong?" His voice immediately sharpened. "You sound off." "I'm fine, She met Marco's eyes, saw him watching her carefully. "I've been thinking about what you said, about your world, the danger, everything, and I realized something." "What?" Christian's voice was careful, controlled. "That I can't do this. I can't be what you need. The last week has been terrifying, and I've realized I'm not brave enough for your life." She forced the words out, each one tasting like ash. "I'm sorry, Christian, I really am, but I need to walk away while I still can." Silence on the other end. Then, "Where are you right now?" Rose's heart jumped. He knew. Somehow he knew something was wrong. "I'm home," she lied. "Just sitting here thinking about everything." "Rose," his voice was gentle but firm, "tell me where you really are." Marco's expression went cold. He grabbed the phone from her hand. Christian, how nice of you to join us. Marco, Christian's voice could have cut glass. If you've touched her, she's perfectly fine. A bit dramatic, but fine. We were just having a conversation about her future, or lack thereof. Marco smiled at Rose. It turns out she's not quite as willing to cooperate as I'd hoped. Let her go now, and maybe I'll let you live long enough to regret this. You're in no position to make demands. I have your woman. I have leverage. What do you have? I have Sophia tracking Rose's phone. I have 20 men surrounding your warehouse. And I have very little patience left. Christian's voice was deadly calm. You have 60 seconds to walk Rose out of there unharmed. After that, I'm coming in, and I'm not going to be gentle about it. Marco's smile faltered. He walked to the window and looked out. Rose saw his face go pale. You're bluffing. Look at the roof across the street. See the red dot on your chest? That's not a bluff. That's a sniper who's been waiting for my signal since Sophia called me 3 minutes ago. Rose's breath caught. 3 minutes ago would have been right when she got into the car. Sophia had somehow gotten word to Christian faster than Rose could have imagined. Marco's hand went to his chest, feeling for the laser sight he couldn't see but knew was there. If your man shoots me, my men kill her. Your men are currently being disarmed by mine. You're alone, Marco. This is over. As if on cue, the sounds of a commotion erupted from outside the office. Shouts, crashes, the unmistakable sound of a fight. Marco's eyes widened. You're insane, he breathed. You started a war over a woman you met a week ago. I started a war because you threatened what's mine. Christian's voice was ice. Now let her go, or find out exactly how creative I can get with consequences. Marco looked at Rose, then at the door, then back at the phone. For a moment, Rose thought he might actually try to fight his way out. Instead, he laughed, a bitter, defeated sound. She's going to destroy you, he told Rose. Not because she wants to, but because that's what happens to everyone who gets close to Christian Valenti. They die, or they run, or they wish they'd never met him. That's my risk to take, Rose said quietly. The door burst open. Christian strode in, flanked by 4 men with guns drawn. His eyes went immediately to Rose, scanning her for injuries. Are you hurt? No, I'm okay. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her against him, one hand cradling the back of her head. You terrified me, he said into her hair. When Sophia called and said you got into that car. I'm sorry. They said they had Danny. Danny's fine. He's in my car with Sophia right now, wondering why I dragged him out of his apartment at gunpoint. Christian pulled back enough to look at her face. You should have called me. The second they threatened you, you should have called. I didn't want to need rescuing. Too bad. You're getting rescued anyway. He looked at Marco, who was standing very still with 3 guns pointed at him. You and I are going to have a very long conversation about boundaries and consequences, but first, I'm getting Rose somewhere safe. What about him? Rose asked, looking at Marco. He's going to learn what happens when you threaten the people I care about. Christian's expression was dark. But you don't need to see that. Rose realized he was trying to protect her from witnessing whatever came next. Part of her wanted to argue, to insist she could handle it. The other part, the part that was still shaking from adrenaline and fear, was grateful for the excuse to leave. Okay, she said quietly. Christian led her out of the warehouse and into a waiting car. Danny was indeed in the back seat, looking pale and confused and hugely relieved when he saw her. What the hell is happening? He demanded. Christian showed up with guns, dragged me out of my apartment, wouldn't explain anything. I'll explain later, Rose promised, sliding in beside him. Are you okay? Am I okay? Are you okay? Sophia said something about Marco Russo and a kidnapping and… Later, Christian said, getting in beside Rose. Right now, we're going somewhere secure. Then Rose and I are going to have a conversation about her complete lack of self-preservation instincts. Despite everything, Rose almost smiled. I have excellent self-preservation instincts. That's why I got in the car, to buy time until you could get there. You didn't know I was coming. I was hoping you'd figure it out. You did say you were good at reading people. Christian looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he did something Rose didn't expect. He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised out of him. You're going to make my life incredibly complicated, aren't you? Probably. Good. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I was getting bored anyway. They drove to the same Brooklyn building from before, but this time Christian led them to a different floor, a fully furnished apartment that was clearly meant for exactly this kind of situation. Danny immediately claimed the couch, still looking shell-shocked. Sophia appeared minutes later with food and a first aid kit, even though none of them were injured. "Marco?" Rose asked her. "Being handled. Christian's having a very pointed conversation with him about respecting boundaries." Sophia's smile was grim. "He'll live, but he won't be causing problems again anytime soon." "What does that mean?" "It means Christian is better at consequences than most people realize. Marco will walk away from this, but he'll carry reminders." Sophia looked at Christian. "Your mother called. She wants a family meeting tomorrow." "Of course she does." Christian rubbed his face. "Fine, tomorrow. Right now I need to—" He looked at Rose. "Can we talk? Privately?" Rose nodded, following him into a bedroom and closing the door. The moment they were alone, the carefully maintained control slipped from Christian's expression. "Don't ever do that again," he said, his voice rough. "Don't ever put yourself in danger like that without calling me first." "I was trying to handle it myself. I don't care. I don't care if you're proud or independent or think you can manage everything alone. When someone threatens you, you call me. That's not negotiable." Rose felt her temper flare. "You don't get to decide what's negotiable. We're not even together. You gave me a week to think, and I haven't decided anything yet. The week's over. You made your choice the moment you got into that car to protect your brother." Christian moved closer. "You think I don't see it? You think I don't understand what you did? You put yourself in danger to buy time because you trusted that I'd figure it out and come for you. That's not the action of someone who's walking away. That's the action of someone who didn't have any other options. You had options. You could have called the police. You could have run. You could have done a dozen things that didn't involve walking into a trap." His hands came up to cup her face. "But you chose to trust me, and I need you to keep choosing that every time, no matter what." Rose's throat was tight. "You scared me. The things Marco said, the photos, the women who got close to you." "Elena," Christian's voice went soft. "Sophia told you about her? She said you loved her, that Marco killed her to hurt you. I did love her, and he did kill her, and I've spent 3 years making sure I never care about anyone enough to give him that kind of leverage again." He leaned his forehead against hers. "And then you walked into that ballroom, and all my careful walls didn't mean anything, because I looked at you and wanted things I'd convinced myself I couldn't have." "What things?" "Conversation. Laughter. Someone who sees me as a person instead of a weapon or a meal ticket." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "Someone brave enough to get into a car with dangerous men because she thought it might save her brother. Someone who calls me on my bullshit and still gives me her hand to hold." Rose's eyes stung. "This is too fast. We barely know each other." "I know enough. I know you're loyal and brave and terrible at self-preservation. I know you make me laugh and challenge me and look at me like I'm worth understanding. I know that when Sophia called and said you were in danger, I would have burned down half of New York to get to you." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "And I know that I'm done pretending this isn't exactly what I want." "What do you want? You, us, whatever this is." His smile was crooked. "I want to take you to dinner and learn what makes you laugh. I want to meet your friends and argue with you about movies. I want to wake up and text you good morning and fall asleep wondering if you're thinking about me too. I want normal, Rose, and I want it with you." Rose felt something in her chest crack open. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, and it's coming from a man who just threatened to burn down half of New York." "I contain multitudes." She laughed, the sound watery. "What if I'm not brave enough? What if I can't handle your world?" "Then we'll figure it out together. But Rose," his expression turned serious, "I need to know you're in, really in, not just curious or attracted or willing to see where it goes. All in. Because halfway doesn't work in my world. It's too dangerous for both of us." Rose thought about the last week. The fear, the uncertainty, the constant awareness of being watched. She thought about getting into that car, trusting that Christian would somehow know she was in trouble. She thought about the way her heart had lifted when she heard his voice on the phone. She thought about Danny's words, about deserving to be happy, about someone taking care of her for a change. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "That's not an answer. I'm terrified, and I'm probably making a terrible decision, and this is going to complicate my entire life in ways I can't even predict yet." She looked up at him. "But yes, I'm in. All in. Completely and probably stupidly in." Christian's smile was brilliant. Say it again. Which part? The part where you're mine. I didn't say I was yours. You did. You just used different words. He kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then hovered over her mouth. Say it clearly so I know I'm not imagining this. Rose's heart hammered. I choose you, this, us, whatever insanity this turns into. Thank you, he breathed, and then he was kissing her properly. Not the careful forehead kiss from before, but something deeper, desperate, like he'd been holding back for so long and finally didn't have to anymore. Rose kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. He tasted like coffee and something darker, and the way he held her, like she was precious and dangerous and exactly what he'd been looking for, made her dizzy. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Christian rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to make mistakes, he warned. I'm going to be overprotective and controlling sometimes. I'm going to forget that you can take care of yourself and try to handle everything for you. And I'm going to call you on it, every time. Rose smiled. I'm going to challenge you and argue with you and probably drive you crazy with my need for independence. I'm counting on it. He kissed her again, softer this time. We're going to be a disaster. Probably. I can't wait. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other, the weight of everything that had happened finally settling. Rose knew this was just the beginning, that there would be more threats, more complications, more moments of terror and uncertainty. But she also knew that Christian had come for her, that he'd moved heaven and earth to keep her safe, that he looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his entire life. That had to count for something. We should probably go check on Danny, she said eventually. He's going to have questions. He's going to have a lot of questions. Christian pulled back reluctantly. Fair warning, my mother is going to want to meet with you. Tomorrow, probably. She's going to have opinions about this entire situation. Should I be worried? She already likes you, but she's going to want to make sure you understand what you're committing to. He took Rose's hand. And she's going to want to know if you're serious about me or if this is just adrenaline and proximity and attraction. What should I tell her? Christian's smile was soft. The truth. That's all she'll accept anyway. They walked back into the living room to find Danny and Sophia in what looked like an intense conversation. Both looked up when Christian and Rose emerged, clearly together in a way that made their decision obvious. Finally, Sophia said. I was starting to think you two would dance around this for months. We're very efficient, Rose said dryly. Danny stood up, his expression serious. Christian, can I talk to you? Alone? Christian glanced at Rose, who nodded. They disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Rose with Sophia. Your brother's giving him the shovel talk, Sophia said, amused. This should be entertaining. Danny's not that scary. No, but his concern is genuine. Christian will respect that. Sophia looked at Rose. You're really doing this, jumping in with both feet. Apparently. It's going to be hard. Harder than you think. I know, but it's also going to be worth it. Christian's loyal, protective, surprisingly funny when he lets his guard down. He'll take care of you in ways you didn't even know you needed. Sophia's expression softened. Just don't let him smother you. He has a tendency to go overboard with the protection thing. I'll keep that in mind. In the kitchen, Danny was apparently finishing his speech. Rose heard his voice rise slightly, then Christian's low response. A moment later, they emerged, Danny looking satisfied and Christian looking slightly bemused. What did you say to him? Rose asked her brother. Just made sure he understands that if he hurts you, he'll have to answer to me. Danny's attempt at threatening was somewhat undercut by the fact that Christian had 4 inches and probably 50 pounds of muscle on him. I'm terrified, Christian said, but his eyes were warm. You should be. Rose is the best person I know, and she deserves someone who sees that. Danny looked at his sister. But I think he does see it, so I gave him my blessing, whatever that's worth. Rose felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Yeah, well, someone has to look out for you since you're clearly terrible at it. Danny pulled her into a hug. I love you, even when you're being stupid and falling for dangerous men. Love you too. Rose squeezed him tight. Even when you're causing catastrophic problems that require mob intervention. We're a disaster of a family. The best kind. They ordered pizza and spent the rest of the evening in that apartment, the 4 of them gradually relaxing into something that felt almost normal. Sophia told stories about various family incidents that made even Christian laugh. Danny slowly stopped looking at Christian like he might pull out a weapon at any moment. And Rose sat there, Christian's arm around her shoulders, feeling like maybe, just maybe, she'd made the right choice after all. It wasn't until later, when Danny and Sophia had claimed the bedrooms and Christian was setting up the couch for himself, that Rose realized what was happening. "You're not staying with me?" she asked. "I'm giving you space. And I'm being respectful. Your brother is 20 feet away." "Christian, we're adults." "I know, but I also know that we just decided to do this for real, and I don't want to rush anything." He pulled a blanket from the closet. "Besides, I like the anticipation. It makes it better when we finally—" He stopped, grinning at her expression. "You're evil." "I'm patient. There's a difference." He kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep, Rose. Tomorrow's going to be intense." "What happens tomorrow?" "My mother. The family meeting. Officially bringing you into my world." His expression turned serious. "Last chance to change your mind." Rose thought about it for approximately 2 seconds. "I'm not changing my mind." "Good." He kissed her properly this time, slow and thorough. "Sleep well." "You too." Rose went to the remaining bedroom and closed the door, her heart still racing. She checked her phone and found a dozen messages from concerned coworkers, 3 from clients asking about meetings, and 1 from an unknown number. "Unknown. You chose wrong. This isn't over." She stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it and blocked the number. Marco could send all the threats he wanted. She'd made her choice. And she was done being afraid. She texted Christian instead. "Rose, thank you for coming for me today. Christian, always, get used to it." Rose, "Bossy." Christian, "You love it." The scary part was, Rose realized, she kind of did. Rose woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of voices arguing in the kitchen. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then everything from yesterday came rushing back. Marco, the warehouse, Christian's rescue, her decision to jump in completely. She checked her phone. 7 in the morning. The family meeting was at 10. She found Danny and Christian in the kitchen, apparently debating the correct way to make eggs. Sophia sat at the counter with her own coffee, looking amused. "Scrambled eggs need butter," Danny was insisting. "Otherwise, they're dry and terrible." "Butter masks the flavor. You use cream." Christian gestured with a spatula. "Trust me on this." "Trust a mob boss about eggs? Sure. That seems reasonable." Rose cleared her throat. All 3 of them looked at her. "Morning," she said. "Are we really arguing about eggs right now?" "Your brother has opinions," Christian said, but he was smiling. "Want some coffee?" "Please." He poured her a cup, their fingers brushing as he handed it to her. The contact was brief but charged, and Rose felt heat climb up her neck. Danny made a gagging sound. "You 2 are going to be insufferable, aren't you?" "Probably," Rose agreed. They ate breakfast, Christian's cream-based scrambled eggs, which were admittedly excellent, while Sophia briefed them on the family meeting. "Lucia's calling in the key people," she explained. "Your inner circle, basically. They need to know about Marco's move and about Rose becoming officially part of your life. There's going to be questions." "What kind of questions?" Rose asked. "Pointed ones. These people have been with the family for decades. They're going to want to know if you're a security risk, if you're trustworthy, if you understand what you're getting into." Sophia looked at her. "They're also going to test you, see if you crack under pressure." "That's comforting. Just be honest. Answer their questions directly. Don't try to charm them or pretend to be something you're not." Sophia's expression softened slightly. "And remember, Lucia already approved you. That carries weight." After breakfast, Christian took Rose aside while Danny and Sophia cleaned up. "I need to tell you something about today," he said quietly. "Marco's going to be there." Rose's stomach dropped. "What? Why?" "Because we're handling this the old way. Public confrontation, public consequences, public resolution." Christian's jaw was tight. "He threatened you directly. He kidnapped you. That can't go unanswered, but it also can't turn into an all-out war. So we're doing this formally, in front of witnesses, with clear terms." "What terms?" "That's what we're negotiating today, but Rose—" He took her hands. "He's going to say things, probably cruel things designed to make me look bad, or make you doubt this decision. You need to be ready for that." "I can handle it." "I know you can. I just want you prepared." He kissed her forehead. "Stay close to me during the meeting. If things get heated, let me handle it. Don't engage directly with Marco no matter what he says." That sounds like you're expecting trouble. I'm always expecting trouble. It's how I've stayed alive this long. They drove to a different location for the meeting, an upscale restaurant in Manhattan that was closed to the public but clearly open for private business. Rose counted 8 cars in the lot, each one expensive enough to make her apartment building look shabby. Inside, the main dining room had been converted into a conference space. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs where serious-looking men and a few women were already seated. Lucia sat at the head of the table, regal in a navy suit, her expression unreadable. Marco stood near the far end, flanked by 2 older men who had to be his family. His nose was bandaged, and there was bruising around his eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. When he saw Rose enter with Christian, his expression went cold. "Everyone's here," Lucia said, her voice carrying easily across the room. "Let's begin." Christian led Rose to seats near his mother. Danny and Sophia took positions slightly behind them. Support, Rose realized, but also witnesses. The room felt heavy with tension. "We're here to address yesterday's incident," Lucia began. "Marco, you violated the most fundamental rule of our business. You directly threatened and kidnapped someone under Christian's protection. Explain yourself." Marco's smile was thin. "I was protecting our family's interests. Christian has been making reckless decisions, starting relationships with civilians who know nothing about our world, exposing us to unnecessary risk. Someone had to make him see reason." "By kidnapping his woman?" One of the older men at the table spoke up. "That's not protection, Marco. That's provocation. She's not his woman. She's a security consultant who he met a week ago and suddenly decided was worth starting a war over." Marco looked directly at Rose. "Tell me, Ms. Miller, do you have any idea what you've walked into, what your presence here means?" Rose felt Christian tense beside her, but she remembered his warning. Don't engage, let him handle it. Except she'd never been good at letting other people fight her battles. "I know exactly what I've walked into," she said clearly. "A complicated situation with dangerous people and high stakes. But I also know that the man sitting next to me came for me when I was in danger, that he kept his word about protection, that he's been honest about the risks instead of trying to hide them." She met Marco's gaze. "Which is more than I can say for you." "Rose," Christian started, but Lucia held up a hand. "Let her speak," the older woman said. Rose took a breath. "You tried to manipulate me with partial truths and manufactured fear. You threatened my brother to force my compliance. You lied about having him, then kidnapped me when your lies didn't work. And now you're sitting here acting like you were protecting something, when really you were just trying to hurt someone you're jealous of." The room went absolutely silent. Marco's face darkened. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I? Christian told me about the hierarchy, the history between your families. Sophia explained how you've been trying to undermine him for years, and yesterday you made it personal." Rose leaned forward slightly. "You used a dead woman, someone Christian loved, as a weapon to scare me. That's not strategy. That's cruelty." "Enough!" Lucia's voice cracked like a whip. "Rose, thank you for your candor. Marco, you've heard her perspective. Do you dispute any of it?" Marco's jaw worked. "She's a civilian. She doesn't belong here." "That's not for you to decide." Lucia's expression was ice. "Christian chose her. I approve the choice. Your opinion is irrelevant." "She'll be dead within 6 months," Marco spat. "Just like Elena. Just like everyone who gets close to him. You're signing her death warrant and calling it protection." Christian stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Careful, Marco. You're about 3 seconds away from learning exactly how much patience I have left." "Sit down," Lucia commanded. "Both of you. We're not doing this today." Christian sat, but his hand found Rose's under the table, gripping tight. She squeezed back, trying to convey calm, even though her heart was racing. One of the older men at the table spoke up, the same one who'd questioned Marco earlier. "Mrs. Valenti, what are you proposing as resolution?" "Marco pays restitution for the kidnapping, financial compensation to Rose for her distress, and a formal apology in front of this council." Lucia's tone was absolute. "He also surrenders operational control of his Brooklyn territories for 6 months while we assess whether he can be trusted to follow protocol." "That's unacceptable," one of Marco's men protested. "Those territories generate significant revenue, which Marco jeopardized with his reckless actions." Lucia's gaze could have cut steel. "He violated protocol. This is the consequence. Vote now. Those in favor of my proposed resolution? 8 hands went up, including Christian's. The 2 men flanking Marco kept their hands down. Passed, Lucia said. Quote, Marco, you have 48 hours to transfer operational control and arrange the financial compensation. Failure to comply will result in permanent removal from family operations. Understood? Marco's face was a mask of barely controlled rage. Understood. Good. Now apologize to Ms. Miller. You can't be serious. I'm entirely serious. You threatened her, kidnapped her, and used her as a pawn in your vendetta against my son. The least you can do is apologize. Marco looked like he'd rather chew glass, but after a long, tense moment, he turned to Rose. I apologize for my actions yesterday, he said, the words clearly costing him. It was inappropriate and won't happen again. Thank you, Rose said, because Lucia was watching her expectantly. This meeting is concluded, Lucia announced. Marco, I expect the transfers completed by Tuesday. Everyone else, thank you for your time. The room began to empty. Marco left without looking back, his men trailing behind him. Rose felt like she could finally breathe. Lucia approached them, her expression warming slightly. Well handled, both of you. Rose, that was quite a speech. I probably shouldn't have said anything, Rose admitted. On the contrary, you established yourself as someone with a spine. That matters in this world. Lucia looked at Christian. Take her home, you both look exhausted. We'll talk more tomorrow. Thank you, Mother. Don't thank me yet. We still need to discuss long-term security arrangements, how to integrate Rose into family operations without making her a target, and what happens if this relationship continues to develop. Lucia's smile was knowing. But that can wait until you've both had actual rest. They collected Danny and Sophia and headed back to the car. Rose felt wrung out, like she'd just survived an interrogation. You did great, Sophia said once they were driving. Seriously, half the people in that room were expecting you to crack or cry or run. You stood up to Marco in front of the entire council. Was that stupid? Probably a little, Christian admitted, but also incredibly brave and effective. You made it clear that you're not going to be intimidated or manipulated. That matters. I feel like I just painted an even bigger target on my back. You did, Sophia said bluntly, but you also made it clear that threatening you has consequences. Marco lost 6 months of revenue and had to publicly apologize. That's humiliating. Other people will think twice before trying something similar. They dropped Sophia off at her apartment, then headed back to Rose's place. Danny had been quiet during the drive, processing everything he'd witnessed. That was insane, he said finally as they pulled up to Rose's building. You realize that was completely insane, right? I know, Rose said, but you're still doing this. You and him. Danny looked at Christian. You're really going to protect her? Because if you're not serious about that, if this is just some temporary thing, I'm serious, Christian said. More serious than I've been about anything in years. Danny studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but I'm holding you to that. Fair enough. Danny hugged Rose goodbye and headed to his own apartment. That left Rose and Christian standing outside her building, the morning sun bright and sharp. Want to come up? Rose asked. I should probably shower and change, but we could talk after. I'd like that. Rose's apartment felt smaller with Christian in it. He moved through the space carefully, taking in the details. Her books, her photos, the security certifications framed on the wall. This is nice, he said. Feels like you. Small and practical. Lived in. Real. He picked up a photo from her bookshelf. Is this your parents? Yeah, that was taken the year before Dad died. We'd gone to Coney Island. Rose moved beside him, looking at the photo. Mom was already sick, but we didn't know it yet. She kept saying she was just tired from work. You look happy. We were. For a while. Rose took the photo from him and set it back down. Can I ask you something? Anything. What happens now? With us, I mean. We've had this intense week, made all these dramatic declarations, survived a kidnapping. What does normal look like after all that? Christian smiled. I have no idea. I've never done this before. Never? Not like this. Not where I actually care about making it work long term. He moved closer. But I'd like to find out. Starting with taking you to dinner somewhere that doesn't involve family councils or threats. That sounds amazing. Tomorrow night, somewhere quiet. Just us. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and maybe after dinner we could talk about what you want this to be, where you see it going, what your boundaries are. You want to have the defining the relationship talk already? I want to make sure we're on the same page, that we both want the same things. His expression turned serious. I know I came on strong. The protection, the family meeting, all of it. If that's too much, if you need me to back off. Rose kissed him, cutting off the words. When she pulled back, his eyes were dark. I don't need you to back off, she said. I need you to keep being honest with me. Keep showing me who you are, not who you think I want you to be. Keep letting me see the person underneath all the control and strategy. I can do that. Good. She kissed him again, longer this time. Now go home and get some sleep. You look terrible. Charming as always. It's one of my best qualities. He left reluctantly, promising to text her later. Rose locked the door behind him and leaned against it, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. You impressed people today. That was smart. Welcome to the family. Lucia Rose saved the number and typed back. Rose, thank you for giving me a chance. I won't waste it. Lucia, I know you won't. Dinner next week? Just us. I want to get to know you properly. Rose, I'd like that. Lucia, good. And Rose, don't let my son overwhelm you. He means well, but he has a tendency to overcompensate when he cares about someone. Rose, I'll keep that in mind. Lucia, I'm glad he found you. He's needed someone real for a long time. Rose stared at that message for a long time before responding. Rose, I'm glad I found him too. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that was almost normal. Christian took her to dinner, quiet places where they could talk without interruption. They went to museums, walked through Central Park, had lazy Sunday mornings where he taught her to make his ridiculous cream-based eggs. Danny came over for dinner twice a week, gradually relaxing around Christian until they could actually have normal conversations. Sophia became Rose's unlikely guide to Christian's world. She explained the family structure, who was trustworthy, which territories were most dangerous. She taught Rose how to spot security threats and what to do if someone approached her with ulterior motives. You're basically getting a crash course in organized crime, Sophia said one afternoon over coffee. Most people take years to learn this stuff. You're getting the condensed version. Lucky me. Hey, at least you're a fast learner, and Christian's patient with you, which is rare. Usually he expects people to just know things. Rose met with Lucia for dinner the following week. The older woman was different one-on-one, less formal, more maternal. She asked about Rose's childhood, her career, her hopes for the future. Christian tells me you're considering doing security consulting for some of our legitimate businesses, Lucia said over wine. We talked about it. I'd have to be careful about conflicts of interest, but there are ways to make it work. It would give you insight into how we operate, help you understand the business side of things. Lucia studied her. It would also make you more valuable as a target. People would assume you have access to sensitive information. I know, Christian's already paranoid about my safety as it is. He lost someone he loved. It makes him cautious. Lucia's expression softened. But it also means he'll protect you with everything he has. That's worth something. It is, Rose agreed quietly. 2 months into their relationship, Rose woke up to Christian's face on her pillow. They'd been spending more nights together, sometimes at his place, sometimes at hers, but she still wasn't used to waking up next to him. Morning, he murmured, half asleep. Morning, you're in my apartment. I know, you let me in last night. We watched that terrible movie you love. It's not terrible. You just have no taste. He smiled, eyes still closed. Maybe. But I'm dating you, so I must have some taste. Rose poked him. That was almost smooth. I'm working on it. He pulled her closer. What's your schedule today? Client meeting at 10. Then I'm supposed to have coffee with Sophia. You? Territory inspection in Brooklyn, making sure Marco's replacement is working out. Christian opened his eyes. Want to come? Rose blinked. To a territory inspection? You keep saying you want to understand my world. This is part of it. Plus, I'd like having you there. He kissed her shoulder. No pressure. If you'd rather stick with your normal schedule, I understand. Rose thought about it. She'd been dancing around the edges of Christian's real work, seeing the legitimate businesses, meeting family members, learning protocol. But she hadn't actually witnessed the day-to-day operations of what he did. Okay, she said. I'll come. They drove to Brooklyn after her morning meeting. The territory was a collection of businesses, a restaurant, a bodega, a small warehouse. Christian walked through each one, talking to managers, reviewing books, checking that everything was running smoothly. Rose watched him work and saw a different side of him. He was professional, thorough, but not cruel. When he found a discrepancy in the books, he didn't threaten. He asked questions until he understood what happened. When an employee seemed nervous, he put them at ease instead of using fear as a tool. "You're surprised," he said when they were back in the car. "A little. I expected more." She gestured vaguely. "Violence? Intimidation? Breaking fingers?" "Something like that." "That's for extreme situations. Day-to-day management is just management. I can't run an organization on fear alone. People need to know I'm fair, that I listen, that I solve problems instead of just punishing mistakes." He glanced at her. "Disappointed?" "No. Relieved, actually. I was worried you might be a completely different person at work." "I'm the same person. I just have different tools depending on the situation." Christian reached over and took her hand. "Does it bother you, seeing what I actually do?" Rose considered. "It's strange. I'm watching you manage what's essentially a small empire, and part of my brain keeps saying this is illegal, this is dangerous. I shouldn't be okay with this. But the other part sees someone who's good at his job, who treats people fairly, who's trying to build something sustainable. And which part wins? I don't know yet. Ask me in another few months." "Fair enough." 3 months in, Marco violated the terms of his probation. He'd been caught trying to manipulate the books in his former territories, skimming money that should have gone to the family. The council met again. This time the verdict was harsher. Marco was out completely, stripped of his titles, his territory, his position in the family. He had a week to leave New York. "You're exiling him?" Rose asked Christian after the meeting. "Essentially, he can't be trusted and we can't keep having the same fight every few months. Better to remove the problem entirely." "And he'll just accept that?" "He doesn't have a choice. If he stays, if he tries to retaliate, the consequences will be permanent. He knows that." Christian looked tired. "It's not ideal. He's family, technically, but some lines you can't come back from." Rose thought about that, about the weight of making decisions that permanently altered someone's life, about how Christian carried that burden without complaint. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, "taking over the family business? You could have walked away after your father died." "Every day," he admitted. "But I also know that if I'd walked away, everything would have collapsed. People would have lost their livelihoods, their protection, their safety. Sometimes the choice isn't between good and bad, it's between bad and worse." "That's a heavy way to live." "It is, but it's lighter now." He pulled her close. "Because I have you, because I get to come home to someone who sees me as a person instead of just a position. That matters more than you know." Rose kissed him, putting everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, she said, "I love you." It was the first time either of them had said it. Christian went very still. "Say it again," he breathed. "I love you. Your control issues, your overprotective tendencies, your terrible taste in movies, all of it." His smile was brilliant. "I love you too. Have for weeks, actually. I've just been waiting for the right moment to say it." "This seems like a pretty good moment." "Yeah, it really does." 6 months after that night in the Plaza Ballroom, Rose moved into Christian's apartment. It was a big step, one they discussed extensively with Lucia, Sophia, and even Danny. Everyone had opinions, but ultimately the decision was theirs. "This is insane," Rose said, looking at the wall of windows overlooking Manhattan. "I'm moving in with a man I met at a party where I thought I was paying off my brother's debt." "Technically, you were never paying off the debt. It was already cleared." Christian wrapped his arms around her from behind. "But yes, this is slightly insane." "Just slightly?" "Completely insane, totally irrational, probably a terrible idea." He kissed her neck. "I can't wait." Danny helped them move, making jokes about his sister shacking up with a mob boss that gradually got less nervous and more genuine. Sophia brought champagne for the first night in the new place. Lucia sent flowers with a card that said, "Welcome home." That night, after everyone had left and they were alone in their new space, Christian pulled Rose onto the couch beside him. "I have something for you," he said. "If it's jewelry, I'm going to be annoyed. We talked about this." "It's not jewelry." He handed her a folder. "Open it." Inside was paperwork for a foundation, the Valenti Miller Foundation for Family Services, Articles of incorporation, mission statement, board member names? Rose stared at it. What is this? You said once that your parents believed the system should work, that good guys should win. This is us trying to make that happen. Support for families in crisis, legal aid for people who can't afford representation, counseling services, job training. Christian watched her face. The funding comes from our legitimate businesses, completely legal, completely transparent. Your name is on it because this is yours as much as mine. Christian, you've changed me, Rose. Made me think about what kind of legacy I want to leave. This is part of that, building something good alongside everything else. He took her hand. What do you think? Rose felt tears sting her eyes. I think you're incredible, and this is perfect. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him, tasting salt from her own tears. I love you so much. Love you too. He pulled her closer. Thank you for taking a chance on me, for walking into that ballroom and not running when you should have. Thank you for seeing me, for making me feel like I matter. They sat like that for a long time, watching the city lights through the windows. Rose thought about how far they'd come, from that first dance to this moment, building a life together despite every obstacle. What are you thinking? Christian asked eventually. That I'm happy. That this is terrifying and complicated and nothing like what I imagined my life would be. She looked up at him. But I wouldn't change it. Not even the kidnapping? Okay, maybe I'd change the kidnapping. That was traumatic. He laughed, the sound rich and genuine. Fair enough. Anything else? Rose thought about it. I wish my parents could have met you. I think they would have liked you. Or at least they would have understood why I chose you. Because I'm charming and devastatingly handsome? Because you're honest. Because you protect the people you love. Because underneath all the danger and complexity, you're just someone trying to do right by the people who depend on you. Rose smiled. My dad would have respected that. My mom would have given you hell for the illegal parts, but she would have respected it too. I wish I could have met them, Christian said quietly. They made you who you are. That's worth knowing. They talked late into the night, making plans for the foundation, for their future, for all the ordinary and extraordinary days ahead of them. And when they finally went to bed, Rose fell asleep feeling safer and more content than she had in years. 1 year after the Plaza Gala, Lucia threw another party. This one was different, smaller, more intimate, celebrating the first anniversary of the Valenti Miller Foundation. Rose stood in the same ballroom where she'd met Christian, wearing a different dress but the same nervous energy. You okay? Christian asked, his hand at the small of her back. Just thinking about last year, how much has changed. Good changes? The best changes. Rose looked up at him. Though I still think you're insane for hosting this here. This room has complicated memories. That's exactly why we're here, taking back the space, making new memories. He guided her toward the dance floor. Dance with me? Is that an order? It's a request. I've learned the difference. Rose laughed and took his hand. They moved onto the floor, and just like that first night, everything else seemed to fade. But this time, there was no tension, no uncertainty, just two people who'd found each other against all odds and decided to make it work. I have a question, Christian said as they danced. Should I be worried? Probably, he smiled. Marry me. Rose stumbled slightly. What? Marry me. Make this permanent. Build a life with me. Complicated, messy, occasionally terrifying, but ours. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I know it's fast. I know it's insane, but I've known since that first night that you were it for me. So, marry me? Rose looked at the ring, simple, elegant, exactly her style. Then at Christian's face, open and vulnerable in a way that still surprised her. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Yes, of course, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, right there in the middle of the dance floor where they'd first met. Around them, people started to notice, started to clap. Sophia was crying. Lucia was smiling like she'd known this was coming. Danny looked shocked, but happy. You're sure about this? Christian asked when they finally broke apart. Sure about me? About this life? About all of it? Rose thought about everything they'd been through, the danger, the complications, the moments of fear and uncertainty. But she also thought about the laughter, the quiet mornings, the feeling of being known completely by another person. I've never been more sure of anything, she said. Good. He pulled her close again. Because you're stuck with me now. I can live with that. They danced until midnight, surrounded by family and friends and the ghosts of who they'd been before. And when the night ended, they went home together, to their apartment, their life, their future. 6 months later, they got married in a small ceremony in Central Park. Danny walked Rose down the aisle, Lucia cried. Sophia made a toast that was equal parts beautiful and threatening to anyone who might hurt either of them. And Christian looked at Rose like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. I love you, he said during their vows. I will protect you, challenge you, and drive you crazy with my overprotective tendencies. I will build a life with you that honors where we came from and create something better. I will be your partner in everything, the good, the bad, and the completely insane. Rose laughed through her tears. I love you too. I will call you on your control issues, stand beside you through every challenge, and probably get kidnapped at least once more because I have terrible self-preservation instincts. I will be your equal, your partner, and the person who sees you for who you really are, not the reputation, not the fear, just you. They kissed as husband and wife, and Rose felt something settle in her chest. This was right. Against all logic, all reason, all common sense, this was exactly where she was supposed to be. The foundation grew. They added programs for at-risk youth, support for families affected by violence, resources for people trying to leave dangerous situations. Rose ran the day-to-day operations while Christian provided funding and connections. It was good work, meaningful work, and it helped balance the darker aspects of their life. Danny got his act together, got a real job, started dating someone who was actually good for him. He and Christian developed an unlikely friendship, bonding over their shared desire to protect Rose and their complete inability to understand her organizational system. Marco never came back to New York. Rumors said he'd started over in Chicago, working for a different family. Rose didn't care. He was part of their past, not their future. 2 years after they met, Rose found out she was pregnant. She told Christian over breakfast, watching his face cycle through shock, joy, and immediate concern. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Should you be sitting down? Actually, you are sitting down. Should you be standing up? What do pregnant people need? Rose laughed. They need their husbands to calm down and breathe. Right, breathing. I can do that. He took several exaggerated breaths, then reached across the table to take her hand. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. I'm going to be a father. You're going to be a great father. His eyes were suspiciously bright. How do you know? Because you protect the people you love, because you're loyal and honest and surprisingly patient when it matters. Because you've already built a life that's about more than just survival. Rose squeezed his hand. Our kid is going to be so lucky to have you. They're going to be lucky to have you, he said quietly. You're going to teach them to be brave and honest and to stand up for what matters, to be strong without being cruel, to choose love even when it's complicated. We're going to be a mess, aren't we? Probably, but the best kind of mess. Their daughter was born on a Tuesday in October. They named her Elena Rose, honoring the past while looking toward the future. She had Christian's dark eyes and Rose's stubborn streak, and from the moment she entered the world, she had both of them completely wrapped around her tiny fingers. Lucia cried when she held her granddaughter. She's perfect. You're both perfect. Your father would have loved this, she told Christian. Danny showed up with ridiculous amounts of baby gifts and immediately claimed favorite uncle status. Sophia taught Elena to glare before she could even focus her eyes properly. And Christian became someone Rose had never quite expected. Gentle with his daughter in a way that broke Rose's heart. Singing off-key lullabies at 3 a.m, making silly faces to get her to smile. Fiercely protective but trying desperately not to be overwhelming about it. I'm going to screw this up, he said one night while rocking Elena to sleep. I'm going to be too controlling, too protective, too much. Probably, Rose agreed from the doorway. But you're also going to love her completely. Teach her about loyalty and strength. Show her what it means to build something better than what you inherited. That's more important than being perfect. When did you get so wise? I married a mob boss and survived multiple threats to my life. Wisdom was mandatory. He laughed quietly, careful not to wake their daughter. I love you, both of you, more than I ever thought possible. We love you too. Rose moved to join them, creating a small family portrait in the dim nursery light. All of us. 5 years after that night in the Plaza Ballroom, Rose stood in their apartment watching the sunrise. Elena was asleep in her room. Christian was still in bed, sprawled across more than his share of the mattress. The foundation had just opened its third location. Danny was engaged. Life was good. It was not perfect. They still had problems, still faced threats, still navigated the complicated reality of their world. But good, real, worth fighting for. Rose thought about the woman she'd been 5 years ago. Scared, defensive, convinced she had to handle everything alone. That woman wouldn't recognize the life Rose had now, the partnership, the family, the sense of belonging. "What are you thinking about?" Christian's voice came from behind her. "How far we've come. How different everything is." He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her back against his chest. "Good different or bad different?" "The best different." Rose leaned into him. "I was just remembering that first night, how terrified I was. How certain I was that accepting your invitation would be a disaster." "It was kind of a disaster," Christian pointed out. "Marco broke my nose, you got kidnapped, we started a family war. But we survived it. We built something real out of all that chaos." Rose turned in his arms to face him. "Thank you for asking me to dance. Thank you for saying yes." He kissed her softly, and for every yes after that. "Even when I said yes to your terrible movie choices?" "Especially then. That's true love." Rose laughed and kissed him again, tasting coffee and morning and the promise of another day together. Behind them, they heard Elena starting to wake up, her little voice calling for her parents. "I'll get her," Christian said, but Rose held on a moment longer. "I love you. I love this life we built. I love that we took the risk even when it was terrifying." "Me too." His smile was soft, genuine, completely hers. "Every single day, I love it all." They went to get their daughter together, ready to face whatever came next. The ordinary moments and the extraordinary ones, the challenges and the joys, the complicated, beautiful mess of the life they'd chosen. And Rose wouldn't have changed a single thing.